James, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11 Eastern Time. Your home for all things Big 12.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Watched on Big 12 Studios. Welcome into a new work week. It is a Modelo Monday. He's R.A. Timken. Did you get a new watch?
No. I've had this one for a long time. Thanks for noticing.
Okay, well, I like it.
It's my grandfather's watch.
Nostalgic. I love it.
Was my grandfather's watch. Stole it from him.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Big fan.
Yeah.
I'm James Westling. T-Chains on the audio controls. We've got Anthony Smith behind the camera for Big 12 Studios. Why are you pointing at me so aggressively?
It just feels like the right thing to do.
Okay.
We're in a game week.
Football
Football
is back.
So back. So back. We've been waiting all summer. We've been waiting all off season. It's finally here. TCU and North Carolina from Dublin on Saturday. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait. Very excited.
Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yesterday was a big day.
41. Huge birthday.
I was going to say 35 has never looked better on you.
Thank you. Yeah, you know that I am 35. No, yeah, it was a great birthday weekend. Had a lot of fun. Got to hang out with friends, and I actually got a Chicago Bears bowling ball that friends of mine got for me. It's like amazing how cool it is. So super excited about that. I have to have the holes drilled into it. I didn't realize when you get like a custom bowling ball, you have to have the actual like holes for the fingers drilled into it.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's like totally custom with
Yeah.
the fingers.
They'll measure your hand and look at the finger placement and
So
drill the holes.
Yeah, so very excited for that.
That's pretty cool. Are you a bowler?
Which was the question I got pretty much the entire evening after I got this ball. And yeah, I mean, I will be bowling a lot more. It was kind of a joke gift to a degree with some friends that we've gone bowling together, and a buddy of mine has a Cowboys ball, and last time we bowled, I bowled really well with it, like in the 180s. And so it was like a joke, they're going to get me a Bears ball, and they ended up doing it. So
Sounds like you're joining a league.
I mean,
You're captaining a team.
it's definitely an option. We're going to be looking at doing a team, so we'll see. You know, now that I've got a ball, now I've got to get shoes and really look like I'm supposed to be there, you know?
That's awesome, man.
Super pumped, yeah. But now the preparations turn to my wife's birthday because she's going to be 40 in a few weeks here. So, you know, it normally my birthday and then her birthday comes really quickly. So it's all hands on deck now moving forward to make sure that the 40th goes off without a hitch.
When's her birthday?
September 17th.
Okay.
Yeah.
My wife is the 14th.
Oh,
So I've started the shopping process
good.
in my brain.
How's the process going?
In my brain, quite well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have a specific mandate not to get my wife anything, which is great.
She's not a shopper, right?
No, not at all, yeah. So I'm just throwing her a party, you know? It'll be fun.
Does she? Clearly, she knows about it.
Yes.
Not a surprise party, just a party.
No, yeah, correct. Yeah.
I always feel like that's the way to go.
A party?
Like, versus the surprise.
Oh, yeah. No.
Let the person who, in a roundabout way, even for a surprise party, ends up hosting the party, at least let them determine the guest list.
That and, you know, what the party's going to entail and kind of the specifics of it. And, yeah, no, absolutely not. No, would not have been a good idea. Sometimes I think you could tell with spouses, like, what is and is not a good idea and how much you want to stretch that. And, you know, this is certainly one of those. What about you going to throw a party for your wife?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Just do nothing.
We'll have a date night. We'll do a gift exchange.
Love it.
I'll try to make her feel really special that particular day.
Good.
But
How do you do that?
she's pretty introverted. I don't think she would love being around a ton of people, even her closest friends. Like maybe a small group, but I'm not much of a party planner, so no.
That's shocking to me. I really never would have
Right?
thought that. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, at our age, you're no longer pre-gaming. You're pre-hydrating.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So how do you feel today?
Great. Yeah. Fantastic. Never felt better.
Awesome.
Thanks for asking. How about you?
Same.
Good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Samesies.
Good.
We're ready.
Absolutely.
All right, so we're going to preview TCU in North Carolina. Today we'll have TCU's play-by-play man, Brian Estridge, on the program. We'll take a look at North Carolina, the week that is leading up to the big Dublin, Ireland showdown. But this weekend, and this actually happened on Friday, and it's a very confusing headline or language that's being used. So this is about the class of 22 athletes that were ruled eligible by this federal judge in Colorado, Judge Charlotte Sweeney. Well, on Friday, the NCAA fought back, filed for a stay.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're still. I thought it was football season, James. I thought we all agreed the courts are gone. I thought the football season's here. We had this whole thing. We talked about it. We even made an intro for it, I thought.
You would think we would be to that point because it is a game week. But it turns out all these guys that we talked about all last week that were going to be eligible, second leading tackler for UCF, Ishmael Mahdi, running back for Arizona, second leading tackler for the Wildcats coming back at linebacker, now they're all ineligible, at least as of we sit here today.
Yeah, it's right when you thought the courts were going to go away, they were not. Not to be confused, by the way, with all the various other states that also have situations like this. So there's really nothing confusing about this entire situation whatsoever. I don't know how anybody would be confused about it.
No.
It's as black and white and cut and dried as there could possibly be.
Yeah, especially when I hear the word stay. When I hear the word stay, I think, okay, all of these players will stay eligible for this season.
No, it's a stay on the court order, which means that the NCAA is now in the driver's seat, at least for the state of Colorado. But in Ohio, Georgia, Tennessee, Louisiana, Kentucky, California, Texas, South Carolina, North Carolina, not so much. So, for a 2022 athlete that was just hoping that the overarching 2022 ruling would be in your favor, that's not the case. That's the Ishmael Mahdi, Max Halls of the world. But for the Thomas Castellanos of the world and many others that are part of different lawsuits, you're still good to go, and perhaps other future lawsuits that will be filed in different states.
And this has had a huge impact on all of the college basketball players that thought they were eligible. Most notably in this league, I would say Donovan Atwell, the shooting guard for Texas Tech, who is one of the best three-point shooters in the entire country. He is now, as of today, ineligible.
Super
easy. Guys like Melvin Council Jr. still fighting for eligibility. And these guys that are playing in the NFL preseason, there's a tight end who just cleared waivers and is going to LSU. Those guys are still, some of them, eligible.
Can you explain this to me like I'm 6?
Probably not. But if I were to attempt, I would say the guys that were class of 22 that thought they were eligible.
I'm 6, James. What's class of 22?
Guys that graduated high school in 2022. They can't play. They can't play.
So there's a teacher, and the teacher wants to give her entire class chocolate milk, okay? But what she's telling the class now is, sorry, you guys already had enough chocolate milk. You're good. You're good. You remember how I told you you're gonna get chocolate milk? Well, you already had enough chocolate milk. You've had enough. No more chocolate milk for you. So then there's let's say 6 of those students have gone to a different class and gotten chocolate milk. And then another 3 went to another different class and got chocolate milk. But the rest of the folks, the kids who stayed in that class, did not get chocolate milk. They already had enough milk.
And they get no milk.
No milk. The students, though, that went to different classes found ways to get more milk. So if you went to a different class to get the chocolate milk, you're good to go.
Get the milk.
If you stayed in the same class, there's no milk. You've had enough milk.
Well, one of those guys.
How's that? That seems
like
a
really
pretty decent explanation for a 6-year-old.
Fantastic. Did you prepare that?
No.
That was well done.
I just had chocolate milk on the mind this morning.
You were
for some
reading
reason.
off a script. It was that beautiful. A work of art.
See if any lawyers are listening. You can check my work there.
All right, so if you're Texas Tech quarterback Will Hammond, how do you feel today, and what's the latest in Lubbock at that position?
Right, so I think the 2 big stories to come out of this weekend were what you just mentioned, which is the chocolate milk story, and then Thomas Castellanos, or Castellanos. I think it's Castellanos.
I was going to ask you the same thing.
Normally it'd be Castellanos.
But I think it is Castellanos.
Yeah. Normally you don't pronounce the L. In this case, though, He invites you to pronounce the L, as I've
Ardell.
heard. So he last played at Florida State, has played at Boston College. He, as part of the 2022 class, has his own ruling in a separate state. He went to a different class to get chocolate milk. And so because of that, he already entered the portal. So because of that, he kind of dotted his I's and crossed his T's. And it from what I've heard and read and the people I've talked to in Lubbock, this is happening. Castellanos is going to be joining Texas Tech. It's just a matter of making sure from Texas Tech's point of view that everything is above board here and that there isn't going to be something down the line that comes back to bite them. This does not, from what I've seen and heard and read, impact Will Hammond. He is still QB1. Mm-hmm. Castellanos comes in as QB2, but I also think like we're going to see him in different ways. He is similar to Will Hammond, more of a dual threat, which is exactly what Texas Tech needs. Remember, they had a statue quarterback last year who once blitzed, could not do anything with it, and that was a huge reason why Oregon had a lot of success against Texas Tech in their college football playoff game. So the latest is Castellanos will be eligible. He's in the portal. He is most likely going to join Texas Tech. This is precisely what Texas Tech was looking for in the wake of the Sorsby scandal. And, this is fantastic news if you're Texas Tech.
Yeah, so he saw the chocolate milk in his classroom, and he said, you know what, this teacher keeps telling me I'm getting chocolate milk, but something tells me that we're going to be out of milk. I might not get mine. So I'm going to a different classroom to
I've
get
had
my
enough
chocolate
milk. I've been told enough times I've had enough chocolate milk.
This is a huge ad. Now, I would compare his path to DJ Lagway in that 2 years ago, he was maybe the most coveted transfer portal quarterback on the market. He had become the first quarterback ever in Boston College history to throw for over 2,000 and rush for over 1,000 in the same season. Well, then he goes to Florida State, and he wasn't very good last season. Completed only 58% of his passes, didn't have a ton of yards, less than 3,000, 15 touchdowns, threw some interceptions, was okay on the ground, but he just wasn't quite the impact transfer that they thought he was going to be.
Yeah, preseason top 5, top 10 team in Florida State who, had a coach fired by the time season calendar turned to October, right? So you could argue that his lack of success was a product of Florida State's impending doom, sinking ship. But, yeah, he had 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. He did add 557 yards rushing with 9 touchdowns, an average of 4.1 per carry. So we got to see the playmaker that he is. But, yeah, he was just a product of a really bad situation at Florida State last year.
They had an awful offensive line, just horrendous. And they had a ton of injuries. He is the insurance policy if he lands at Texas Tech for Will Hammond, who's coming off a torn ACL. Now, I went and I profiled some quarterbacks in past years who have torn their ACL in college and come back and played a full season, because the quarterback position seems to be the one where guys don't tend to be super impacted by that injury. Like Case Keenum at Houston tore his ACL in 2010. In 2011, Houston goes 11-0 to start the season. He had a banner year, led to him being drafted.
And he's still an NFL quarterback playing for the Bears currently.
Third string?
Yes. But was on the roster last year as a third stringer and probably will be again this year.
Curtis Rourke is the other one. Tore his ACL at Ohio, came back, had a really nice season, lands at Indiana, and was really part of that Indiana rise to get them to the college football playoff 2 seasons ago. Michael Penix Jr. is the other one. Now, I know in the NFL he's dealing with all types of injury stuff, but when he was at Washington, he tore his ACL as a freshman, then he tore it again, had a ton of injuries, but he still ended up having a healthy season, which landed him a top 10 draft position. So Will Hammond, I think, is going to be okay, but the off chance that he isn't, you now have a top 5 backup, probably nationally, definitely in the league.
Have you heard much of the criticism around Texas Tech for this?
Criticism?
Yeah, I felt the same way.
Texas Tech?
It's funny. Texas Tech in this way is doing what a lot of other programs and schools have done, but is for some reason people are being critical of them, and I think it's the season for it, right? Open season on him. But yeah, you saw some of that on social media too in reaction to this, and it's like, yeah, why would Texas Tech do the same thing that lots of other schools are doing, and have some sort of an insurance policy contingency, if you will? But yeah, again, they're making sure that everything from a legalese perspective is above board, so that they can protect themselves from further criticism over things that most other schools are doing.
LSU adds an elite NFL tight end who looks like Javon Curse out there. He is a freak. And everybody just says, oh, that's Lane being Lane.
Lane.
Has to be Lane.
Just plucking NFL players away. If Texas Tech did it, they'd be the mouth of Satan themselves.
Yes, totally. Did you watch any NFL preseason over the weekend?
Kidding me? Yes.
Okay.
How could I not? Cowboys dominated. If you're a Cowboys fan and you're not thinking Super Bowl, you, my friend, are not falling into the same trap.
You, my friend, have not watched at least a quarter and a half of the preseason. Okay?
I'm half joking and half serious here.
They should be much better.
Yeah, considerably.
Do you know who Jacardia Wright is?
Yeah.
Do you?
Former Kansas State running back,
No
Jacardia
way.
Wright.
70 yards to the house.
You know what's funny is I saw you wrote this down on the rundown and was like, I do know that name.
Why is that familiar?
Could not place him. It was like, looked him up and saw, oh yeah, that's right. He played at K-State, also played at Missouri State at running back.
Yes. He is a wild story. So he rips off this 69-yard touchdown run. It's all over my social media. I was stunned that he is still floating around in the NFL. Because this kid was not even a backup running back at K-State. I mean, he was like fourth on the depth chart. And he was a highly touted late signee in the process, had some grades stuff, got it sorted out. 3-star recruit out of St. Louis, lands at K-State. But he cannot get on the field. And he was a guy that would just tear it up in practice because of runs like this. So he ends up transferring to Missouri State. He didn't even have 1,000 yards in 2 years at Missouri State. But because he's just incredibly athletically gifted, 6 foot, 218, he runs like a 4.4, he ends up getting signed by the Seahawks, makes their practice squad, they waive him, then they bring him back. But he's been balling out now for back-to-back years in the preseason, and Seahawk fans are just going ballistic about this kid.
Does he have any eligibility left?
Class of 2019.
Oh.
Just barely missed the cut.
Just barely missed the cut. I didn't realize that even mattered. It is kind of interesting. Football is a sport like that where, it can become so specialized where a guy that, you can't figure out why he can't see the field, for some reason ends up churning out some sort of an NFL career. It's really remarkable. I mean, it truly, like, especially given a very specific skill set, like, they can find something for you. If you have an elite skill set, no matter what it is, the NFL will find a spot for you and put you in that spot.
Third-string running back at K-State. They didn't even make a bowl game his second year in Manhattan, and he could not get on the field.
By the way, speaking of preseason football, I don't know how much you're paying attention to the Cleveland Browns, but Shedeur Sanders looks like QB1. He is showing out and saying all the right things in Cleveland, and meanwhile, Deshaun Watson is getting booed and yelling at fans, and it's really a remarkable story, just the whole situation with Cleveland and the quarterbacks. But above all else, Shedeur Sanders, a guy that we've covered pretty thoroughly, looks to be in line to be quarterback 1 for the Cleveland Browns.
And he should be.
A year ago, he was quarterback 4 on the depth chart at this time.
And he was QB1 statistically and moving the ball towards the end zone.
Yeah.
More than any other quarterback on the roster.
Yes, by far.
And he's doing the same thing again in the preseason. And now, and we've got to play this Deshaun Watson audio later in the show, T-Chains, but now Shedeur is a hero. People love him. Could be the guy.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of quarterback, behind the scenes of the transfer portal chaos of finding a quarterback. Also, we'll look at some Big 12 quarterback depth. Big 12 quarterback depth in this league looks really good, even compared to the other two, the Big 10 and the SEC. More on that in a moment. He's Ari, I'm James. We are brought to you by our good friends at Modelo, here exclusively on TuneIn. It is a game week for the Big 12 Conference with TCU headed across the pond to take on North Carolina over in Dublin, week 0. That is the marquee game nationwide, and it features the Horned Frogs. We'll be talking with Brian Estridge, the play-by-play voice of TCU, here in about a half hour. But we were talking about all the eligibility stuff off the top. When it comes to the portal stuff, the quarterback position, Max Olson from ESPN has a really in-depth piece about just how chaotic that scene can be, with the portal window being condensed to 2 weeks, and you've got 34 power conference schools scrambling for a quarterback. And I love the behind-the-scenes angle. He uses Bo Pribula. Thank you. I always butcher his last name. The former Missouri quarterback as an example. He thought he was following James Franklin or reuniting with James Franklin at Virginia Tech, and then they pivoted and signed to somebody else, and it was just a total mess. There's one Big 12 school that's named in this piece where Cincinnati thought they were going to land the backup quarterback at Ohio State. He goes elsewhere. They pivot to J.C. French. But just the madness of this and how cutthroat it can be stood out to me. And then also, my main takeaway is the Big 12 did really well in the portal at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great profile, as you alluded to, from Max Olson, where you get to get a pretty decent insight into the musical chairs that is the transfer portal at the quarterback position. You know, it's a lot different than other positions insofar as, you know, there's a huge payday if you could find it, but you need to be sitting in the right chair before the chairs are moved. Unlike other positions where you might throw depth at it, the quarterback is one where you're kind of looking to see one. And so it kind of went through like he was going to go to Virginia Tech to be reunited. At one point, Pribula was at Penn State with James Franklin. And, you know, very much like he's visiting Nebraska. One of the stories that was crazy that was mentioned here is Pribula is in Nebraska visiting while Colandrea is also visiting. And, like, Colandrea is meeting with offensive staff as Pribula is showing up to the facility, and they're like, well, he just signed. So Pribula's like, oh, okay, I guess I'm good. It was awkward, Nebraska offensive coordinator Dana Holgorsen said, but how else do you do it? You got to get him ASAP. You have to make the decision, because if you wait in the portal, you're cooked. If you wait an hour, you might be cooked, end quote. And then it said by the time Pribula arrived at Virginia, which is where he ended up going, he had done 5 official visits in 7 days, just to give you a sense of, again, the musical chairs aspect of this whole deal. And it was made even worse this year by the one portal. Worse is, for lack of a better way to put it. The one portal meant that teams only had one crack at it, and you couldn't screw it up. Like Texas Tech. Just kidding.
8 days, 6 visits, over 6,000 miles is the headline. And, you know, Cincinnati had to pivot to J.C. French after they lost out on the backup at Ohio State, who kind of out of nowhere signed with Louisville. It looked like he was probably headed to Cincinnati or South Florida. But J.C. French is a pretty nice pivot. And then I think about guys like Jalen Rayner at Iowa State, Alonzo Barnett III at UCF. And this chaotic piece highlights to me how fortunate the Big 12 is to have experienced veteran signal callers coming into this league. Compared to elsewhere, there are a lot of teams that have a ton of unknowns at that position, like top to bottom in their conference, and Football Scoop did an in-depth study, and the Big 12 looks really good.
Well, and you know, in the piece from Max Olson, DJ Lagway's quoted, he said, quote, "It's really fast. I feel like that's the biggest decision of your life, and it's got to be fast. It's like speed dating." And so it sort of remains to be seen how this will work out in terms of just the way that the portal went this year for the quarterback position and the speed dating aspect of it, right? Like, we know who ended up where. We just don't know how successful they're going to be. But, yeah, to your point, Football Scoop released kind of a profile on a study of Big 12 quarterbacks. And, you know, what Zach Barnett from Football Scoop wrote about is, you know, that he believes that the Big 12's quarterback crop is better than the ACC's, and that it is pretty close to the SEC and Big Ten in terms of being the deepest group in football. And, sort of the classification or the characterization of them, 10 transfer quarterbacks among the 14 known expected starters. And, there's just a group of, Noah Fafita, Avery Johnson, who each have 2+ years for the school they signed out of high school. Then there's Julian Lewis and Will Hammond, year 1 of the same development cycle for Fafita and Johnson. And then you've got Connor Wigman and DJ Lagway, former 5-stars who found their quote-unquote forever home. And then there's, the fourth group, franchise guys, as he writes, at the group of 6 or FCS level playing contract years in the Big 12. Jaden Craig, J.C. French, Jalen Rayner, Drew Mestemaker, Devin Dampier, and Alonzo Barnett. So sort of characterizing each of these quarterbacks. And there's like the 4 different groups. Two of those groups basically just the homegrown talent group, and then the rest of the 10 from some sort of classification of transfer portal quarterback.
And the first league that they looked at was the ACC, and they coined that league Journeyman Quarterback Conference. There's a ton of unknowns. This, to me, magnifies the gap at that position between the Big 12 and the ACC. And I love these tiers. You've got the guys at the top, homegrown, multi-year starters in Fafita and Avery Johnson. The guys that are kind of headed in that same lane. I think Julian Lewis is going to have a monster year for Colorado. And then Will Hammond, the guys that have been in the same system. And then the guys that transfer back home to they call it their forever home, DJ Lagway at Baylor and Connor Wegman at Houston, perfect fits. And then the contract year guys, like the conference will start a first-team all-conference quarterback from 5 different leagues. The American in Mestemaker, the Ivy League in Jaden Craig, the Sun Belt in Rayner, the Mountain West in Devin Dampier, and then the Big 12 itself in Noah Fafita.
Yeah, that's an amazing number there. Can you repeat that?
The Big 12 will have 5 different quarterbacks who have been first-team, not second or third or honorable mention, first-team all-league quarterbacks in a league.
Yeah, the American, Mountain West, Sun Belt, Big 12, and Ivy League. I think this speaks to the reality of recruiting with the Big 12, and this is what we've come to expect. The Big 12 is going to be in on high-level quarterbacks because it's always been a conference of offensive ingenuity, and it will continue to champion offensive ingenuity and how it hires and how it hires coaches. So I think like Drew Mestemaker, Eric Morris is a perfect example of that. And then the 25 median starts. The 14 names, according to Football Scoop, have a whopping 25 median career starts, well above the ACC's 11.5, the SEC's 15.5, the Big Ten's 17.5. And even if you sub in Arizona State and Kansas as 0, because we don't know who their quarterback's going to be quite yet, quote unquote, Big 12 still enters the season with a median of 24 starts, with a whopping 8 players beginning the season with 2 years of starting under their belts. So a lot of experience, guys that have played a lot of football. I think this represents a pretty good scope of what the Big 12 looks like in terms of quarterback recruiting. You're going to have guys that were internal 4 or 5-star players. You're going to have former 4 or 5 stars that want to return home to the state of Texas where they're from. And then you're going to have just a group of journeyman quarterbacks that have put up big numbers in other schools, and they're trying to level up.
The career starts aspect is massive.
Yeah.
You want an experienced quarterback. To have 8 more career starts on average than the next most experienced conference. I mean, think about that. 8 out of 12 games, that's almost an entire season. That's 3/4 of an entire season that the Big 12 has on average at that position. They have more than almost 2 seasons over the ACC of starter experience. Fafita has started 34 games. Lagway has started 19. Wegman has started 26. Rayner has started 36. I think that experience is going to pay off at that position. And then the recruiting pedigree. The Big 12 has 2 5-stars. You've got 4 4-stars. You've got 6 3-stars. And then you have a couple of guys that were unrated. Like, that holds up. That's better than the ACC. It's not quite SEC and Big Ten level, but it's not that far behind either to have those 5-star quarterbacks and those 4-star guys that also have experience. This was a really encouraging piece from Football Scoop.
Yeah, right. I mean, and again, I think like it's pretty indicative of what I think the future, like the current and future Big 12 quarterback situation will look like. Again, I think there's going to be a handful of guys that are recruited by Big 12 schools. I think you've got a handful of guys that are, former high recruits that went elsewhere that are returning home. You'll have that probably within Florida and Texas a lot, and then I think you're going to have, a grouping of the journeyman quote unquote quarterbacks. I think for me, if you zoom out, this represented what we should expect Big 12 quarterback dynamics to look like moving forward. I mean, what they have looked like and what they will continue to look like. This is not a one-year thing. This is sub out any name for future names, and you're going to see a very similar dynamic.
And the guys that have experience, they aren't guys that have experience as average quarterbacks.
Right.
They're guys that have experience as studs.
The top of other conferences. Exactly right.
All right, coming up next, a little Monday morning quarterback. It's never too early to start previewing games. TCU and North Carolina, week 0. We'll hear from Sonny Dykes, the TCU head football coach, some position groups to watch before Brian Estridge.
And no shortage of drama with North Carolina here, and none of it has to do with Bill Belichick's girlfriend.
Sip that tea. We'll sip that tea. Coming up next. This is Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio.
and James. Your home for interviews, analysis, and all things Big 12. This is Big 12 Radio on TuneIn.
Well, the weather for Saturday over in Dublin, Ireland, TCU in North Carolina kick off the Week 0 slate. Looks pretty much like the British Open usually does, and the Week 0 game in Dublin. It will be a carbon copy of the conditions that Florida State and Boston College played in 2 seasons ago, and Kansas State and Iowa State saw last season. So the high is 64 degrees. Sounds beautiful. Showers in places in the morning, and then in the afternoon, a low of 51, rather cloudy with a strong chance of rain.
So it won't be exactly like what it is here, is what you're saying.
Didn't we break a Dallas record yesterday? 109?
I mean, maybe, perhaps.
That's what Twitter told me.
Feels hot. We haven't had rain in 2 months either, so that's a problem, it feels like. So yeah, we could use some of that Dublin weather here. But no, it'll be perfect if you have been in Fort Worth for months on end playing football. Maybe a little bit chilly, perhaps. But yeah, you're right. I mean, this is exactly the weather you expect for the British Open, exactly the weather you expect for Week 0 in Dublin.
Might want to bring a coat.
Yes.
All right, fill me in on this North Carolina drama. Let's start there. I'm all ears.
Yeah, I mean, this is just what I guess follows Bill Belichick. This is not Jordan Hudson either. This is not his girlfriend. It's the GM, Michael Lombardi, who came over with Bill Belichick. He's the highest paid general manager in the sport, and is on leave right now for a pending investigation with some improprieties that are going on within the program. But the bigger one, perhaps, is Steve Belichick, Bill's son, the team's defensive coordinator, who was placed on medical leave earlier this month, August 6th, without an explanation. Quote, "It's a medical situation, so I really can't make any further comment on that." Bill Belichick said that he hoped the team had him back as soon as possible. He declined to speculate on the availability for Dublin and said the rest of the defensive staff will fill in collectively. "We coach the defense collectively as a staff. We'll continue to do that," end quote. So last year, Steve Belichick, Bill's son, called the defense. That was expected to be the case this year, but he's placed on medical leave on August 6th. So, and as Bill Belichick is known to do, he's not going to give much information on that. Belichick, obviously, historically, has been a defensive coordinator. My guess is he'll call the defense, but he did not do so last year. So lots of drama with North Carolina here.
And at the local level, he's been even more tight-lipped than he was this time last season. They have no idea what to expect. He's been super combative versus cooperative at his press conferences.
Shocking.
Like on steroids. There's no word on who their starting quarterback's going to be. So they have 2 guys, Miles O'Neill, who apparently is getting first-team reps late in camp, but it was supposed to be Billy Edwards Jr. He was their highly touted prospect, who everybody thought would be the starter. That bodes well for TCU, especially a TCU secondary that has been retooled. But I think that secondary is going to be fine. Like, I started diving into the guys that are going to replace Fields at safety. It's either going to be like Jordan Lester is a guy who's been in the program, highly touted, like top 80 safety out of high school. He did play some last season and started the Cincinnati game. He started the last 2 games, the Cincinnati game and the bowl game, and he was fine. He had 6 tackles against Cincinnati. Ryan Yates will be in contention, who's a transfer previously from LSU and Cal, played in all 12 games last year at TCU. Like, this TCU team, they have the lowest turnover, roster churn of anybody in the league, and now they have all these high 3 and low 4-star guys because they've had 4 straight top 30 high school classes that have stuck around, waited for their turn, and this is their opportunity.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be a low-scoring game because I look at both of these defenses and think they're far ahead of where these offenses are. TCU's because it's new and they're figuring some stuff out, and North Carolina's because there's lots of question marks, including their offensive line. North Carolina's offensive line is probably the biggest question mark. They've got some guys at the portal, but for the most part, it's a lot of new players. And then you mentioned the quarterback. I have an expectation we're going to see 2 quarterbacks in this game, including Billy Edwards, as you mentioned. He was the expected starter, and then A&M transfer Miles O'Neill, who was originally recruited to A&M by offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino for North Carolina. The other thing, you mentioned this about TCU in terms of like they've got a lot of talent and they've been recruiting at a high school level at a very high level. North Carolina did that this past year. They spent a lot of their time recruiting high school kids. They had the 17th ranked class nationally in 2026 with 10 4-star players and 31 3-stars. Their portal class ranked just 64th. So it was the complete opposite of what Belichick did his first year in 25, going hard in the portal. He's now gone after more high school talent to try to get 3-4-year guys and pay those guys because they've got the money to do it than in the portal. So this is going to be a much more talented team, especially on defense, but young talent. So I think this team could be a lot better, North Carolina, without winning many more games than they did last year.
And that philosophy can work. We've kind of seen it in Colorado with them retooling the way they recruit. But having a bunch of freshmen on the field week 0, which is what you're going to see from North Carolina, bodes very well for TCU. Here's TCU coach Sonny Dykes talking about the quarterback position. We just went through North Carolina. Let's flip it over to Jaden Craig, the TCU quarterback.
The thing that's so impressive about him is just his ability to concentrate and focus. He's just one of those guys that is always on. These players are up in this facility for 12 hours a day this time of year, and the guy's focused for all 12 hours. He's always trying to get better. He's trying to find an edge constantly. He's just one of those incredibly mature guys that's very focused, and I think that's been probably the most impressive thing about him. He's on the field, he's improved tremendously. He's just really, really comfortable with what we're doing offensively. He's made great decisions, hasn't forced the ball. I think people are going to like what they see. It's going to be a step up. I mean, it's going to be different than playing Dartmouth. I mean, it just is. But if anybody can handle it, he can. I think he'll be in the right frame of mind. I don't think anything is going to be too big for him. He's just that kind of guy. He's just wired that way. So it's been impressive. I mean, it really has been. We're excited to see how he performs and plays, and I know he'll continue to get better and better, and that's what I like.
What are your expectations for Jaden Craig, week 0, in these conditions that we just went over? This is always a low-scoring game. I don't know that anybody's eclipsed like 28 points ever in this week 0 game.
Yeah, and I think the one thing, too, in terms of expectations is if you're Sonny Dykes and you're Gordon Samus, you have a pretty good idea of what this defense is going to try to do to you. I mean, even without Steve Belichick calling the plays, like there's a historical context here with Bills defense where you have a pretty good idea of what they're going to try to do. So there shouldn't be anything surprising from a game prep standpoint that they end up seeing, but this is going to be a much more talented front for North Carolina. And so what I'm looking for is a clean game, obviously, right? No turnovers. That would be huge. And I think, we talked about it last week, like somewhere between 25 and 30 attempts, perhaps, would all probably spell success. And then, look, Jeremy Payne in this ground game, right? I mean, I think, how does Jaden Craig and Jeremy Payne coexist within the ground game? Because we know that Jaden Craig can use his legs a little bit. I think, does he use his legs? How are they using him in the run game? And how do they use him to get the running game going? Are things I'm looking for out of Craig on Saturday.
J.D. Andrews from TCU Horned Frogs, their Sports Illustrated affiliate, ranked their position groups, and his top 2 groups are offensive positions. Running back is number 1. The tight end room is number 2. New offensive coordinator. Let's hear what Sonny Dykes had to say about the evolution of this TCU offense through the years.
We've always tried to stay ahead of the curve in college football. I mean, I think that's always given us an advantage. I think that's why our teams have performed well, is because there's never been all right, this is who we are and this is what we do. We're always trying to push the ball and move it forward. And, and I was lucky enough to kind of come up in the air raid, and then we took the air raid and then went fast and then played tempo, no huddle really fast. The air raid was a no huddle thing, but it really wasn't a fast tempo. So then we started to play fast with more of an emphasis in the run game. And so we kind of evolved to that. And then it was, which was a lot of 10 personnel, 4 wide receivers, no tight ends, and then it evolved to a little bit more of a tight end based offense, a 6-man blocking surface, and then, like anything else, we really like our tight end room, and we want to make sure we're getting our best players on the field. And then, that was part of the thing, the matchups. And then, for me, it really came down to just wanting to be more physical. I felt like it would help our entire football team. It would help our program. It would help our defense if we had a more physical mentality. And so, when the opportunity presented itself, we hired, Gordon, and he's done a tremendous job. I mean, he just has come in. Our guys are more physical. I believe in building a football team up front on the line of scrimmage. I just have always believed that. And I think that's his belief as well. And so, I think we've made a big jump in our offensive line, and I think we've made a big jump in our defensive line because the offensive line's made a big jump. And it's just been more competitive. It's been more physical. It goes back to the old adage, I think iron sharpens iron. And I think our guys have a tougher, more physical mentality, and I think it's going to help us win football games.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, you asked me a moment ago what I'm looking for. Like, I want to go back again to the run game because it's something that the TCU team really wants to get jump-started here. And this is a team in North Carolina that's breaking in brand-new linebackers. Kamori House was their leading tackler last year at linebacker. He left for Arkansas. Another one of their linebackers went to Florida State. Their best pass rusher, Andrew Simpson, is done. They did bring in a two-time first-team All-Patriot League FCS player who's 8th in the FCS with 120 total tackles in Sealman. But to me, that's like they've got a lot of talent up front from what they did in high school recruiting. But I'm testing their linebackers. And this plays, again, into what TCU wants to try to establish in terms of the run game. So that's a big part of what I'm going to be looking for in this game on Saturday.
So to test North Carolina's linebackers, a position that can thrive in that setting is tight end. TCU has maybe the most underrated tight end room in the league. These guys are huge. Kamorion Pittman is 6'6", 250. Their backup tight end is 6'6", 260 pounds. And their third-string tight end is also 6'6" and was named to Bruce Feldman's Freaks list a couple of weeks ago. Like, that room is just stacked. And whether they're blocking or going out to catch passes from Jaden Craig, I think we're going to hear those tight ends or at least see the impact that they have in a big way.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. And I think this is where, again, like, TCU should be able to control this game. And I don't think they're going to win by as many points as they won last year's game. But I think that there's ways that they can still dominate. And to your point, like, I think both of these defenses should play well and get some stops. But ultimately, it's the linebackers of North Carolina that I think can be really taken advantage of, especially, as you mentioned, with the tight ends.
Yeah, with the conditions and the time change and everything that goes into playing this game, like a 27-14 type game, I'd feel really good about. I'd be okay with that. It doesn't need to be 45-14 or whatever it was last year where they just stomped them. But a 2-score win, that'd be really exciting. I think the line is around 7 or 8 for this game.
7.5, I think, is what it is.
Brian Estridge is the play-by-play voice of TCU Athletics. He will join us coming up next. More on TCU in North Carolina as we get you prepped for Week 0. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We are brought to you by Modelo. You're watching us on Big 12 Studios and listening to us exclusively on TuneIn.
The field, and you've got number 88 to the bottom of your screen against a shorter defender.
Hoover again, crossing pattern, end zone, caught, touchdown. It's a moot point now. It's Rogers, the tight end.
About 4 hours from campus in Fort Worth. 5 wide here, and all sorts of time for Hoover with a dime down the middle of the field. DJ Rogers, the tight end, sets up first and goal for TCU.
The Red Raiders might say, if you could just get a redo on that one. Big play to DJ Rogers, the tight end, rumbling. DJ Rogers all the way down to the 25-yard line. Big gain there for this TCU offense.
Hoover 6 of 7 in this opening drive. He'll keep it. Just tosses it to DJ Rogers, and TCU on the board first. Back. That's always a good job by a defender.
Hoover, he does it again. No problem. DJ Rogers has it inside the 10, all the way down to the 8.
Hoover pulls it to the tight end. DJ Rogers, his second touchdown of the season.
The backfield as it was Barnes by himself for a moment. Swings it out. Rogers breaks the tackle, stays on his feet, is decked out of bounds at the 30.
This is Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio, watching us on Big 12 Studios. Alongside Ari Timken, I'm James Westling. It's a game week for TCU in North Carolina, week 0 in Dublin, and we welcome in the voice of TCU athletics, Brian Estridge, on the show. Brian, if I was putting together an Instagram carousel of the top Brian Estridge summertime moments, what would be what would be number one?
Probably a Thursday in July where I shaved my back. Felt real good about it. That was really the first time this year that I'd gotten to that and needed it. And it looked like somebody had shot a fox in my yard when it was over with, but that's okay.
Yeah, James, I don't think you were there that time that Brian was shaving his back while doing an interview on video.
Yeah.
It was actually,
sounds like a typical Tuesday.
I think I was in a hotel doing that too. The maid was not real happy after seeing all that in the tub.
Well, I mean, that's where you're supposed to do it, right? You're not supposed to do it at your own house where it gets really dirty, right? I mean, you're supposed to do it somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's why do you pack? Why else do you pack the razors, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Let's go.
Come on. Speaking of packing the razors, when you going to Dublin? When are you going to the homeland?
Yeah, leaving on Wednesday with the team. Team travels out Wednesday evening, arrives Thursday in Dublin, and gets a little shakeout, a little walkthrough in on Thursday. Got some commitments they've got to do, and then Friday, obviously another practice, pep rally on Friday, and then play the game on Saturday. Fly home Sunday. It's a quick trip to Dublin.
Yeah. So, like, what stands out to you about this game this year?
Well, I mean, obviously the sense of urgency to start the season is important, and the international stage, brings a whole host of challenges. They're not bad. It's just, it creates a different set of challenges for you. I think it's great that you got the whole world's attention, if you will, sort of kicking off the season. I'm excited about the new quarterback that TCU has in Jaden Craig. I'm anxious to see how he adapts to the 1A football game, if you will, the P4 game. I think that's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun to see how Gordy Samus, the new offensive coordinator, handles things at TCU and how different they look. I'm anxious to see how Bobby Petrino has affected North Carolina. New offensive coordinator. What kind of influence will he have on a team that was kind of in disarray last year? How much improvement do we see there? And there's just something exciting about starting football, right? I mean, it's here. We get to dive right in the middle of it.
Brian, when it comes to like what we're going to see from TCU offensively, we went back and we were really stunned to find that Josh Hoover and the UConn quarterback, where Gordon Samus was coordinating that offense last year, they had the exact same number of passing attempts and the exact same number of games. And I think there's like this perception that it's going to be run, and the passing game's going to be limited. But that tells me that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be a case of, this is an 80% run team. Although Sonny Dykes did joke about that last week. When I asked him, hey, what in a perfect world, what would that ratio be? And he actually said 80-20 run. And I said, wait a minute, is this air raid Sonny Dykes saying this? And he pointed out that just means you're whipping everybody. But no, I think it's going to be a team that takes what the defense gives them. You're right. I mean, he, the quarterback for UConn last year did have the same number of throws as Josh Hoover. The big difference was interceptions. That UConn quarterback only threw one. I think he threw, 25 or 26 touchdowns and one pick. So I think that's kind of where you start to see differences in the offense. They may not take as many chances, risky chances. They may be willing to settle for a screen or a check down or things of that nature. And I think that's what's been preached into Jaden, is be a good decision maker. Two hands on the football at all times. They call them BIJs, which for a minute I had to think about it because I was like, whoa, what does that mean? Can I repeat that on air? I'm thinking here, oh, whoa, wait, BIJ, what could that be? Balls in jeopardy. No balls in jeopardy. That's what they're looking for out there offensively. And so I think that's what's been preached. I think that's what you're going to see on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, and then defensively, this should be the strength of this football team.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about with this defense?
Yeah, I think this defensive line may be one of the better defensive lines we've ever seen around here at TCU. I mean, They have depth. They have talent. They can kind of play any game you name. They have size, which is always an issue, obviously, in Big 12 football, And so I think that kind of is the exciting thing to me. I think the defensive backfield, I think the corners are going to be okay. I really do. I think Vernon Glover's going to have a great year at corner. You got questions at linebacker, and they know it. And I think that's interesting. Andy Avalos touched on that in his last press conference. Said, hey, that room knows that you're talking about them as the weak link, and he fully expects them to step up. You got some questions at safety, obviously. But to me, this defense, it's all about the defensive line. Really on offense, too, Ari. I mean, I think this offensive line is homegrown. It's been a slow burn, as Sonny Dykes said, to build an offensive line with depth where you get 10 guys that you feel really, really good about that are not only big and strong but are athletic as well with an understanding of the offense. So I think it's got a chance to be really good also.
Brian, what's your take on the secondary with Fields getting dismissed from the team last week? What does that group look like now, and who fills that void?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a bit of a void there, but I mean that was a battle, going back and forth throughout the camp, at safety. I mean, and there's a couple of young guys that we're not thinking about, that we're not really talking about, that I think are going to be pretty good for it. But Jordan Lester is a guy who's played a lot of football, and he'll start at that safety spot. And you've got Caden McFadden behind him. Is another young guy that they're high on, that has played some ball. Devin Hadrago is a kid who's come in, a sophomore, who didn't play in the spring. He's out of Franklin. They're really high on him. Ryan Yates is another guy. So those are names that none of us are talking about, right? That none of us have heard, that I think have a chance to be pretty good players. And so to me, though, it's all about Lester. I mean, Jordan's 6'2", 220 back, or probably 210 at safety, playing it free now. And then you got Jamel Johnson, who's got a lot of playing time, getting a lot of attention and strong, and Julius Sims at the nickel that can help cover things. So I'm not panicked about that spot yet.
Brian, what can you tell us about the fallout, the situation with Jacob Fields and the fallout from that?
Yeah, I don't know if there was any fallout other than, Lester, it's your time to step up. I mean, I think that's a big thing is, Jordan, here's your opportunity. I think that's the biggest thing. I was impressed at how Sonny Dykes handled the situation. I was impressed at how this team handled the situation, and that next man up. You're either with us or you're against us, and so I think that's been the case. And Jordan Lester's that next guy. Now you get a chance, to take on a North Carolina team that there are a ton of questions about them. They got a new quarterback, got a new offensive coordinator. What are you going to see out of them offensively? It's still kind of a patchwork offensive line. So I think that is the biggest challenge for this defense right now.
Chatting with Brian Estridge, play-by-play voice of TCU. So this game is always kind of gross, but week 0.
Yeah.
What would make you feel like, okay, this was fine? Like,
yeah.
When's the last time anybody even scored 30 points over there in Dublin?
Yeah, it's kind of like eating at a Chinese buffet with Ari. You're going to get something on you. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be fun to see. I mean, it probably will be wet. It'll probably be rainy. The grass is probably going to be high. You got all those things working against you. So, but you know what? Let's go do it. I think the big thing is, you've seen programs and teams over the years that have played in this game that you could almost feel like it affected them the rest of the year. And I think the preparation and the planning going into this one for TCU is to avoid that. And that's why, you're not seeing them going out there for a week or anything like that. It's a quick trip. It's in and out. And then you get a week off after this game to get ready for the rest of the season.
What do you think is the thing that people are missing about Jaden Craig?
I think people say, oh, he played at Harvard in the Ivy League, as if that's a bad thing. And I'm one of those nerds that would watch Friday night Harvard football, and back then it was on the NBC network. I don't even know where they air them now, but maybe ESPN does them. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's football is football. Now, are the players going to be bigger? Are they going to be a little bit faster? Yeah, there's going to be some of that. But if you can play, you can play. And there's a reason why NFL scouts already think this guy's a mid-round selection. I mean, they see something in him. He's a smart kid. He's calm. He doesn't get rattled. The speed has not affected him at all this spring or the fall. And so I think people are underestimating. Here's the other thing, Ari. He was under-recruited out of high school. It was in the middle of COVID. His mother really wanted him to go to Ivy League school, so that was kind of a lock-in anyway. It wasn't as if he couldn't play back then either. It was just a kind of a crazy sequence of events that led to it. Good for him, though. He got a degree from Harvard, graduated, and now gets a chance to continue that with a season at TCU.
Brian, how challenging can it be to prepare as an announcer for a Week 0 game when the opponent, they release a two-deep? Like, there's been nothing from North Carolina's camp in terms of what this team will look like.
Yeah, no, that's the hard part. I mean, it really is. But it was hard last year with them. You didn't get any information. You just got to read as much as you can. You got to take some guesses. You got to take some chances. Thinking, hey, okay, well, this guy was a highly recruited guy. He should be that. But I think the biggest thing is just try to read as much as you can and try to try to figure it out and over prepare. I mean, James, you know this. You do this every day as a play-by-play guy. You know, you're going to use about 30% of what's on your chart anyway. In this case, it might be about 15%. You know, you're just going to put as many guys on there as you can, hope that you pick the right ones, and be ready to pull out the Sharpie in the middle of the game when some dude shows up you never heard of.
Yeah, seriously. And then what about, like, defensively? We're not really sure the situation with Steve Belichick. I'm assuming he's not going to make the trip based on what we've heard. He's on medical leave. You know, does that mean Bill's going to call the defense?
I think that's going to be the plan. I mean, at least that's what we're hearing. He will have a hand in it, so you better believe he'll have some influence. And what does that mean? I mean, are there changes between the two? I don't think. You know, I think they kind of think alike. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's so many things that go into this that you would love to have the answers to that we just don't heading into that game. And so I think that's why, you know, you kind of build your preparation and your chart in Jell-O, because you know you can wiggle it out if you need to and straighten it up in another way.
Yeah, that's well said. Brian, would love to get your perspective on the league as a whole. Who do you really like this year that maybe isn't getting the love that they should, and just your overall, like, top three headlines? Yeah,
I mean, I think there are a couple of things. I think that the league is wide open, to be honest with you. I mean, I really do. I mean, I know everyone wants to go ahead and anoint, you know, Texas Tech and BYU as the two top teams in the league. I think Arizona is going to be better. I think Central Florida is going to be better. I mean, West Virginia's got to be better, right? Don't be surprised if Baylor's better than we think down there. You know, so you know, and then you're going to have some that you go, I don't know. I'm anxious to see how K-State is, and you know, does the system change at all? I don't think it does there. Iowa State, obviously, we think is going to struggle this year based on just what how depleted the roster was at that point. Utah, do they take a step back? You know, I think a team that I think quietly could be better and people aren't necessarily talking about, which is odd to say because they talk about them a lot, and that's Colorado. I think Colorado could be better. So I get the sense that it's been a real work focus this year at Colorado as much as anything. And so I think to me, though, there's no clear-cut favorite. I mean, there's a clear-cut spender, but there's not necessarily a clear-cut favorite. And so I think, I think everybody's going to have an opportunity in this one. And that's what TCU wants, is just a chance to be in the discussion at the end, and then let the play on the field decide it and not worry about what everybody's making or what they're spending or, whatever else figures into it.
Brian, what do you like about Colorado?
I just get a sense that they're working harder, man. That it's been more about football and less about show this year. And they're spending money. I mean, it's not as if they didn't spend any money on the football roster. So there is that there. I just get the sense. You asked me who we're not talking about that could be better. I just feel like they could be that team.
Yeah, they got a brutal schedule. If they made a bowl, like it would be a tremendous season.
Yeah, I don't count them out. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I like it.
And by the way, can I say this? The league needs them to be good.
Yeah.
The Big 12 needs Colorado to be good. They need Dion to be good. We need folks talking about Colorado football.
Yeah, that's well said. All right, Brian, can't wait for the call on Saturday. Safe travels, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, have a monster for me.
Done. Love it.
Figured it.
You're the man.
All right, boys.
All right, see you, Brian.
See you, brother.
See you.
Brian Estridge, play-by-play voice of TCU Athletics, joining us here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Likes Colorado, your initial sleeper team. Also, really likes what TCU's put together in the trenches. I think it's really encouraging that Sonny Dykes, the first position group he talked about most recently was the offensive line. Their defensive line looks ginormous.
Yeah, no, I mean, and we'll get into it in a moment here, but we'll talk bowl season. There's 7 bowl projections that I've referenced. 0 of those 7 have Colorado go bowling this year. So it's Brian and myself against the world.
Against the world.
Yeah.
You guys are prestige worldwide.
Yes.
All right, coming up next, a little bowl talk. It's never too early to talk Big 12 bowl projections. It is Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. You are watching us on Big 12 Studios, listening to us, powered by Modelo on TuneIn.
Horned Frogs show pressure. Kevin Jennings retreating. Bottles up and now goes down to the 5.
Over the red zone.
And down he goes. How about those active ends and linebackers, huh? Caleb Elarms are all over the place. This kid can play. Senior from Hayward, California. Option to the wide side counters. Great play. Alarms are again. That young man has just been outstanding all day.
Nominee, here's Sama. And not much out there. They had the edge sealed. And he's swung down by Elarms Orr.
Down behind the line of scrimmage.
Hard in the running back. Coming in from Westwood after 3 seasons. Elarms Orr. The tackle behind the line, the TFL.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. We are powered by Modelo. There's over 100 Modelo fan rules. And Modelo fan rule number 9, game day outfits are chosen with more care than work clothes.
Yeah, obviously.
Nothing could be more accurate.
It's a given. It's a given. Because you got to think through all like the history of it, you know? I mean, are there bad memories tied to it? Is there bad juju, right? I mean, have I lost in this jersey?
Did I wear this jersey last game?
Yeah. There's a lot with work. It's like, please, I'll just put on whatever's there.
I like that shirt you've got today.
Thank you.
You're going with some graphic tees lately, and I like it.
Appreciate you. You do not.
Nope. Plain Jane over here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe go with like a male name.
Can you describe your shirt?
It's an album from Miles Davis called Kind of Blue, which is, in my opinion, the greatest album ever made.
You've been on a big music kick lately.
Thank you. I do like music.
You had a
have multiple affliction tees.
angel wings on the back, bedazzled.
You a Miles Davis fan?
Huge. Massive. Massive.
Why do I not believe you? Do you know who he is?
Yes.
You've heard of Miles Davis?
Yes, I have.
You've heard of Miles Davis outside of Billy Madison?
Yes. I would say that's a hard yes. Do you know who Leon Bridges is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Like his stuff?
Yeah, he's a local guy.
Yeah, local guy. I met him.
Oh, wow.
In an elevator.
How about that?
It was weird.
You guys friends now?
Pretty much, yeah, we text.
When did you meet him?
A couple of years ago, my wife and I had gone out to dinner, and the restaurant was in this really nice hotel. I felt very uncomfortable. Everybody was like a lot of money floating around that place, right? So it's late at night. We'd had a couple of nightcap beverages, and I can't remember if we were going up or down the elevator, but it pops open, and it's Leon Bridges.
Wow. And you knew, like, you recognized him and knew what he looked like? And
Yeah.
everything? Oh, that's pretty cool.
We did.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's very tall. Very tall. It was late at night. We didn't want to bother him, so when I say met him, I mean I just recognized him.
Got it. So you didn't say anything. You just got in the elevator. Everybody was quiet. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but it was a pretty big moment.
Huge.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Pretty amazing story.
Yeah, he's basically, I think they say Leon Bridges is the Miles Davis of music.
Yes. That's what they say. They say that. All right, Big 12 bowl projections. It's never too early to talk bowl games. These are floating around about everywhere. Taman has pulled Brad Crawford, our buddy at CBS. First thing that stands out to me is he's got 2 Big 12 teams in the college football playoff. And this is not the only one that I saw over the weekend that had multiple Big 12 teams in the college football playoff. It seems to me that Texas Tech and BYU are almost expected to be in the college football playoff, which is a really good thing for the Big 12.
Yeah, I was able to kind of evaluate not only Brad's from CBS Sports, but Brad McMurphy from On3, Bill Bender from Sporting News, Steve Lassen from The Athlon, Pete Futek, our buddy from College Football News, Mark Schleybaugh from ESPN, and Kyle Bonagura from ESPN. Just to sort of see, you know, how do these all evaluate relative to the Big 12? And so first piece is that 0 of 7 have the Big 12 with one of the top 4 seeds. Every one of these projected bowl projections has Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, Oregon, Texas, Indiana, or Miami as part of its top 4. The highest Big 12 seed anyone has is BYU at number 5, according to Pete Futek. And what's interesting, too, is it's actually a lot closer. The Big 12 went 4-3. Texas Tech went 4-3 out of these 7. McMurphy, Crawford, Bonagura, and Lassen, all of Texas Tech. Futek, Schleybaugh, and Bender, all of BYU winning the Big 12, which is probably more than I expected. And then 4 of the 7, as you referenced there, including Brad Crawford, have 2 teams in the field for the Big 12. So 4 of those have the Big 12 with 2 teams in the field without having a top 4 seed in the college football playoff bid. And then the last one to point out is that, as I mentioned this earlier, 0 for 7, Colorado and Iowa State, the two that out of the Big 12 that did not make any bowl projections across all 7 of these. Everybody else showed up at least one of the bowl projections. Iowa State and Colorado went 0 for 7 in terms of bowl projections.
Okay, so the only 2 teams out of 16
Yep.
that everybody across the board omitted from playing in a bowl were Iowa State
And Colorado.
and Colorado.
Yep.
Not Cincinnati.
Correct.
Not West Virginia.
Correct. Not UCF.
All right, so Colorado, who Brian Estridge just noted, you and Brian are like on an island because you guys really like Colorado. Is this more based off of their schedule, or do you think just everybody's off the Deion bandwagon now?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, they do have a tough schedule, and so to get to 6 wins, it's like where do you find those 6 wins? I mean, you play Georgia Tech to start the year, at Georgia Tech, and then you play Northwestern, in Evanston, right? So, not the most difficult Power 4 opponents, but still, Colorado's in that same vein in terms of finishing towards the bottom of the Big 12 last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's partially schedule, and I do believe that some of the shine from Deion has worn off, and I'm not sure that folks have looked deep in this roster, right? Like some of the headlines following Colorado, well, Jordan Seaton left and went to LSU for a bunch of money, right? So I just think there's headlines that are sort of negative on Colorado. The schedule and the Deion shine are all playing into this.
Colorado's going to win one of those non-conference road games against either Georgia Tech or Northwestern. Both teams have a ton of roster turnover. This is not Georgia Tech of last year. They've got Fernando Mendoza's brother, Alberto, but he was a backup. He's very inexperienced, and he's only a sophomore. Like, I would take Julian Lewis. I give him the edge in that game.
I mean, I think there's a chance they could win both of those and
Yeah.
finish 3-0 in the non-conference. If they do that, I think, the fact they're going to finish with at least 6 wins and maybe even be in position to compete towards the top of the Big 12 in a way that we didn't expect. Now, I don't expect that. I think, 6 wins would be a pretty good season for them, and would show a lot of momentum heading into next season to potentially put them in the Big 12 championship race. But we'll see. We'll see if they finish 3-0 in the non-conference with wins at Georgia Tech and Northwestern. All bets are off in terms of what their ceiling is.
And they gave Georgia Tech that game last year.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech's not as good as they were last year.
Not even close. They had, 3 turnovers before halftime, and we're still only down by like a touchdown?
Yeah, some of the other numbers to look at. So the average out of all 7 of these was 10 of 16 to get postseason bids. Remember, the Big 12 had 8 postseason bids last year in terms of bowl projections and went 4-4 in bowl season. So Bonagura has them at 11. Schlabel has them at 11. Crawford with 10. Lassen 10. Futek 10. Bender 9. The median is 10 of 16. And then how about this one? Utah. Bonagura has Utah missing the postseason entirely. So he doesn't think that Utah is a postseason team, whereas Futek has Utah 12th in his final top 12, but leaves them out because of the group of 6 auto bid that consumes that last spot. Crawford has Utah in the Alamo Bowl. So 3 different tiers, according to 3 different publications. One has them close to the playoff, another one has them in the Alamo Bowl, and another has them outside of the bowl projection altogether.
Wait, somebody has Utah not qualifying for a bowl game?
Yeah, Kyle Bonagura from ESPN.
Has Kyle seen their schedule?
No, I guess not. Apparently not.
They could play their third stringers and win 6 games.
The other one is nobody has Houston winning the Big 12. Everybody either has BYU or Texas Tech. Okay. I don't know if that surprises you at all. But they are getting the Alamo Bowl, Pop-Tarts Bowl, which is, basically towards the top of the Big 12, and 6 of the 7, I should say. So nobody has them in the playoff, but everybody has them at the top of the Big 12.
I didn't realize Fitzgerald was no longer the coach at Northwestern.
It's been multiple years, dude.
It has been, yeah. David Braun.
Yeah, there was a whole
2024.
There was a whole scandal with him.
That's right. Yes.
But he's now back. Where's
he's at Michigan State?
Thank you, Michigan State. I knew he was back. And the fact that he's back at the Big Ten shows you how kind of egregious his firing was at Northwestern. Former Northwestern legend, was a very good coach.
Yeah. All right, so would you rather have a team get a bye and win a game in the college football playoff, but only one gets in? Or would you rather have no bye, but 2 teams get in, and one of those 2 teams gets to host a first-round game?
You're saying would I rather have one team get a bye or 2 teams get in?
One team get a bye and win their game. Or 2 teams get in, one team gets to host, which puts them in a position to be the favorite to also win a game.
I don't know. So you're asking me, would I rather have a bye and win or
more teams in to have more chances to win?
But no guarantees of the win.
No guarantee.
How about just because the win is from the bye? I'm confused here. You
Yes.
made me very confused. Yeah, I'd rather have 2 teams in.
Okay.
I get what you're saying.
I was trying to up the stakes with that built-in win.
Understood.
See?
So you weren't saying like they get a win on top of the bye. You're saying they get a bye, which means they're guaranteed to get to that next round, whereas if you get 2 teams in, they're playing in the first round with 2 home games, but no chance to get no guarantee to get through.
Yeah.
I'd still take 2 teams.
Me too. Like, I'm looking at Brad Crawford's projections. BYU in as a 10 seed at Indiana. Texas Tech in as a 6 seed hosting SMU.
So, all right, so how does that play out then? Meaning, like, does that mean that Texas Tech wins the Big 12 and BYU only has the 1 loss? Do they have 2 losses and still get in?
So he goes through this very in-depth, and he breaks it down by record. From all the projections I've seen, because of where BYU is starting in the preseason AP Top 25 poll, in 11-2, BYU gets in the field.
That would be, I mean, and if BYU's only 2 losses are to Texas Tech at the Big 12 championship game and to Notre Dame at home, there's a path for them to get in potentially. I still think it's highly unlikely they would. Now maybe it comes at a close loss with Tech, and you lost at home in a close game to Notre Dame, and so maybe that's part of what gets you in. But I think that'd be a huge growth point for the Big 12. Like if that actually ends up happening, that'd be huge. I think there's a chance that the Big 12 gets 2 bids and it's not BYU. I think there's a chance the Big 12 gets 2 bids and it's not one of them is not Texas Tech. I think there's a chance that the Big 12 gets 2 bids and it has one of the teams is not one of the teams we expect it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning it's not Texas. I think there's a good chance the Big 12 gets 2 teams in, and one of them is not Texas Tech or BYU.
See, and that would really move the needle for the league. Because right now, all of this is based off of where these teams are preseason ranked. If you have somebody come out of nowhere like BYU did last season and end at 11-2, an 11-1 regular season, let's say they lose the Big 12 championship game and they still get in, that's huge for the league. I don't foresee that team being Kansas State. I don't want to say completely jumped off the K-State dark horse bandwagon.
You have completely jumped.
But I'm really concerned about the offensive line.
I mean, rent-free, dare I say?
Or you could say it.
K-State wasn't even mentioned here. Like, you just suddenly, just brought them up out of nowhere here. Like, well, if there's a team out of the Big 12 that comes from nowhere, it's not going to be Kansas State. Back to you, Ari. Pretty much what you just did there.
I'm drinking that purple.
Nobody mentioned K-State. Don't worry.
Nobody's talking about K-State. I can't stop thinking about the Wildcats. I'm worried about their left tackle, John Pastore. He's out for the year. George Fitzpatrick's not going to play. He was their second-best offensive lineman. They're scrambling.
Wakes up frantically middle of the night. He's sweating. His wife looks over at him. What's wrong, honey? It's the left tackle at Kansas State. I called them my sleeper team.
Backup free safety rolled his ankle in practice.
Lacey's like, get this man a Modelo. That is a full-time fan.
All right, so who's the team? Who's the team then? If it's not BYU or Texas Tech, you have to identify a team.
It's not Kansas State.
It's not Kansas State. So who is it?
Utah, Oklahoma State, TCU, Houston. One of those 4.
Sounds about right. Don't hate it.
I mean, TCU plays Texas Tech
late in the year on Thanksgiving in Lubbock.
Yeah. So that one could be a situation where, if you split, do both teams get in? Utah, I'm trying to remember Utah's schedule off the top of my head here. They avoid Texas Tech. So, that's where you could see. Because, Utah is Iowa State, Kansas, Colorado, Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, Arizona, TCU, West Virginia. If Utah beats BYU and they win the rest of the games as they're expected to, and then they they squeeze one out at Arizona, at TCU on the road, right? Like, I could see a situation where Utah and Texas Tech play in the Big 12 championship. They're both undefeated, and a win, or either team wins, they're both in.
Utah's toughest games are at home.
Yeah.
In Salt Lake City, BYU and Houston. And then their toughest road game is at TCU. That's a tricky one.
Late in the season.
Mm-hmm. All right, those are some Big 12 bowl projections here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. Coming up next, we are going around the conference talking with all the athletic directors. Graham Rossini joined us on Friday's show, the Arizona State athletic director. We will chat with him coming up next. That'll be a replay. And then next hour, we dive into our Countdown to Kickoff series with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Chris Level will be our guest, the host of Locked On Red Raiders, on the sidelines for Texas Tech football and their radio network. That's still to come here on Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio. He's Ari, I'm James. We are brought to you by Modelo.
Last time they played, Johnson throwing the ball, and it's tipped up and intercepted on the deflection. What a pick! Xavier Alford came in from nowhere and picked it clean after the pass was broken up. Second and 3. Play action. Morton. Knocked away. Looking for the tight end Conyers. It was Alford.
Big 12 Today, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios. Along with James Westling, I am Ari Temkin, and we are pleased to be joined right now by Graham Rossini, the athletic director for Arizona State. Graham, how are you?
Excellent, guys. Good to be with you.
Great to be with you. A lot to get to with you and your athletic department and just how much growth and incredible success we've seen in a short period of time. But we were just talking about this 2022 class ruling, and not just that, but now you've got the Louisiana ruling that allows for many of them to enter the portal. It is a wildly evolving situation, and I mean not just the 2022 class situation, but just the whole enterprise. But what is your feeling, read, take on what's going on right now with 2022 class?
Yeah, I mean, it's a day in the life in college sports right now. You wake up and what lawsuit, what injunction, what rule change. And so, I mean, it's borderline getting on the point of ridiculousness in terms of just how you wake up. And, we're in a position where we're trying to be strategic, we're trying to be planful. And I think that's the most challenging part about this moment in college sports. It's just hard to do those things. And we're responsible for the environment, being stewards of this experience. But as the goalpost not even moves, like the goalpost is zigzagging at this point. Yeah. And so we've been on record, at ASU, certainly the Big 12 as well, as proponents of the Protect College Sports Act. I think Commissioner Yormark does a great job of saying it's not the perfect bill, but it's a very important progression in terms of just some regulatory environment. We just want to know what the rules are. We want to know what the guidelines are so we can actually chart our course and start heading in that direction. And so, we're eager for Senate to get back in September and have a chance to vote on it. I know there's a lot of conversation on the topic. It is imperfect, but it's an important step forward in two ways specifically. Ari, we talked about this back in Frisco of just, getting control on the agents, getting them registered, getting them certified, getting some fidelity in that environment where you're operating with people that are looking out for the best interest of their client and fair to work with. And again, there's a lot of great agents. We work with a lot of great agents, but there's a lot that have ulterior motives, and that's really driving a unsustainable marketplace in a lot of ways. And then, the one-time transfer, we need to get back to that. We can't have every athlete in every sport be a free agent every single season. That's not fair to our coaches. That's not fair to our athletes. That's not fair to the environment that we're trying to steward and build. We're not trying to replace professional sports. We are trying to sophisticate the business of collegiate athletics. We're not trying to replace professional sports. And so, the injunctions, the 5 for 5, we're mindful of that. We're following the news every single day to understand what opportunities there could be. There are kids that are eager to come back to ASU that have been a part of building our programs, but we need a little bit more information before we really understand what that looks like.
Yeah, Graham, when you say sophisticate the business side, what are the headlines, and can you expand on those things?
Well, this is big-time sports business. It's not professional sports, but there's still a business component to what we do in an athletic department that's always been there. Now more than ever, that's a really important area of focus in terms of revenue generation and building your brand and storytelling and finding all these connection points. That it's not about selling a ticket or selling a jersey. It's about creating an experience, and it's creating an experience that people can invest in, where the byproduct of what we do, I think, is still as pure as ever. You've got 18 to 23-year-olds at this point choosing us, choosing our institution, choosing our city, choosing our programs, choosing our coaches. There's an incredible responsibility to that. We want to compete, we want to win, there's no doubt about it, but it's more importantly about preparing these young people for the real world and preparing them for society. And when you look at the early years of NIL, there's been a lot of great attributes, there's been a lot of great takeaways, but there's also been some false expectations set for these young people about what life in the real world is going to be like in terms of putting in hard work and sticking to a plan and having deliverables and having a commitment to something bigger than yourself. And so I'm not trying to be foolishly romantic about what college sports is turning into, but we are very focused on controlling our upside and building our brand and creating resources and connections that allow us to reinvest into a student athlete experience. And we don't want kids that are here for vanity. We don't want kids that are here for what's my paycheck going to look like? What's my car deal going to look like? We want kids that want to plug into an ASU network because we're very proud, we're very bullish, we're very motivated about what we're building here at ASU. And so that's a bit of what we talk about when we talk about sophisticating the business of college sports.
Graham, you've been around ASU a long time. You've been around that program a long time, even when you were working with the Diamondbacks, obviously, close to them. The Arizona State is new to the Big 12, but when you look at where you are right now, I mean, baseball had, the player of the year, and baseball's, had a lot of success. Volleyball, I mean, what an incredible season ahead for volleyball. Swimming and diving is one of the best in the country. Football has really grown. So it in some ways, when you sort of look at your athletic department, when we look at your athletic department right now, it's like, wow, so many great programs. But it felt like a few years ago when you took over, this was not the case at Arizona State. It was a much larger mess. Can you just kind of speak to that and maybe what your first order of business was and how, how things look so orderly and successful right now when there was a period of time when it didn't?
Yeah, it's interesting to be able to start to reflect. We're 2 years in at this point. I'm 2 years into the role, and it's been fun to kind of look back at kind of where we started and where we are. And I think it starts with having just amazing coaches. We've made a number of coaching changes over the last 2 years, kind of coinciding with our entry into the Big 12. And we did this summer. We have a new director of track and field and cross country, Ryan Van Hoy, who just joined us from Cal Poly. And that's 6 sports. That's 6 of our 26 right there, and 6 that really haven't been earning for us. And so it starts with leadership in your programs, and really out the gate, one of our most important objectives were we want to operate like an athletic department. We want to be a unit of Sun Devils operating and advancing this effort together. We don't want 26 sports that operate like independent contractors and just happen to wear the same uniform. And so seeing our head coaches collaborate and connect and lean on each other and share information and talk about how they build their rosters, talk about how they plug into the ASU network has been really one of the best parts of my experience as an AD is letting them come together and really lean on each other, compete. They're all competitive people. They all want to one-up each other, but it's like those buddies you had in middle school where you might have got a 91, James wants to get a 92, I want to get a 93, and you kind of keep pushing each other in that regard of just trying to get better every single day. And so it's been a lot of fun. Our first 2 years in the Big 12, 9 conference titles. It's the most that ASU's had in a 2-year stretch ever, going back to the early days of the WAC in the 1970s. We had 5 last year, the most that we've had since 2007. And, obviously a lot of focus on football, men's basketball, women's basketball. Those really kind of drive the ship moving forward. But you talk about the momentum in volleyball, back-to-back Big 12 champs. We get started against Texas tomorrow in Milwaukee, starting top 15 ranked. Swim and dive, both men's and women's, kind of on this back-to-back run, producing national champions, producing Olympians. It's been a really fun thing to watch. Women's tennis, winning the Big 12 last year, getting a chance to host a regional for the first time in, I think, 35 years at ASU. Softball and what they did, women's basketball making the tournament in Coach Miller's first year. There's momentum around our space in all different ways. And, it's hard to be a well-rounded athletic department now more than ever. It's really hard to have that expectation that 1 through 26 are going to be able to go deep on these tournament runs. But we're looking at shared resources. We're looking at responsible decisions. We're looking at tools that we can bring in that benefit the entire athletic department. And frankly, there's a lot of attributes of using a giant university like ASU that our coaches are starting to tap into. JJ Van Neal, our volleyball coach, has probably been the most successful at kind of tapping into the engine of ASU and understanding how can he get a group of students and faculty to talk about roster analytics and help him build a roster and build a profile for how he wants to allocate roster resources in a way that allows him to build these NCAA tournament teams. And so it's been really fun just to have our coaches connect, to really point them in the direction of tools that are available through ASU or around Phoenix and the Valley here. And so we're on our way. We talk about we've got some momentum. That is true. We're also catching up in a lot of respects. And so both things can be true, but we're hungry and motivated and really focused on building our brands as a proud member of the Big 12.
When you talk about, allocation of resources, I'm sure in your mind you've got kind of an idea of the percentages, how much of the revenue pie football gets, or basketball, or women's basketball, or volleyball. But is that, are you able to kind of move that a bit as circumstances change? Maybe like, hey, well, there's an opportunity to get this guy, and maybe that extends us in a resource allocation for one sport, but we have to borrow from another. Is that, I guess, just give us a sense on how that all works.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balancing act. I don't think that any 2 years can be the same. We're trying to be fluid with the needs of the program. We're trying to be mindful of the marketplace as it relates to coaching staffs, as it relates to rosters now, and really be disciplined on it. I think the propensity is you always need more, and we want to continue to grow those resources. But the reality is we want to be very smart with the utility of the dollars that we put in. And so really looking at building out parts of our staff now that can look at the marketplace and utility of investment, and really take an analytical mind in terms of how we recruit and how you player develop and how you build rosters, because every dollar having that benefit to it or that return on investment is a part of how you run rosters at any level of high sport. And so now that we can bring that thought process and that reality and those tools into how we manage our programs, I think that's a big part of our evolution unique to ASU. But part of it is just driving revenue. And I think the beauty of college sports is still that every dollar we make, we're reinvesting into our student athletes. We're reinvesting into this experience. We're reinvesting into our programs. And so we've been lucky in the past 2 years. Our commercial revenues are up 20% 2 years in a row. And so kind of growing that pie is a big part of the goal, because the more you make, the more you're able to reinvest. And so, we're lucky. We're one of the few schools that our corporate partnerships is in-house. We don't have a third-party rights holder. We're in the 5th largest city in America. There are businesses moving to the Valley, setting up shop. We have decision makers all around us. And so what a great opportunity for us to kind of build these top-to-top relationships with corporations, knowing that they want to plug in as a partner. They see value in the investment into ASU. They see the value of a profile of, frankly, in the Big 12, one of the best benefits has been this national footprint. The fact that we can maintain the West Coast because we came in with the 4 corner schools and we have that presence on the West Coast, but having 4 schools in Texas, having a presence in Florida, having a presence with, Cincinnati and West Virginia, Iowa State to an extent, giving you bits of the East Coast, that's massively valuable. And what Commissioner Yormark has done with our television distribution and getting us on all these national networks, like people can understand what's building at ASU. That's really, really important for us as we grow our brands, create more resources that we reinvest in our programs. And so, Ari, I think it's a combination of things. And again, there's not one playbook that's going to work year after year. We've got to have those tough conversations with our coaches. We've got to understand the environment that they're recruiting in. And then our responsibility within leadership is to find the resources for our coaches to lead our athletes at the highest possible level. Very complicated time in college sports. We're trying to simplify that mission as much as we can.
Graham, before we let you go, there's been a lot written lately about Kenny Dillingham and why he came back to Arizona State. And it wasn't just Michigan, like Auburn came after him aggressively as well. So we'd love to hear from your perspective the driving factors in those conversations and why he came back.
I mean, he's the perfect fit for us. I mean, this is a lifelong Sun Devil, born and raised in the Valley, coming to games at 3-4 years old, and now getting a chance to lead our program. And so I think, like any coach, they want to know that they've got the resources to do their job. And that's been the process. We've extended Coach Dillingham twice in the last 2 years. We know what we have. We know he's a special coach. We know he's a generational figure. He has energized this fan base in a way that few people can. And so, really the conversations that we always have are, let's start to look at where this sport is going and how do we A, catch up? How do we B, get to the point where we can start to advance some tools that we can bring into our program? And so he's tremendous to work with. He challenges all of us, and that's what I want. I want our coaches to be very clear on the things that they can identify that allow them to build the programs. And it's not about things that he needs, it's about things that his program needs. And so that's always a beautiful part of the process. He's tremendous to work with. He is energized the Valley, activated the Valley, as he talks about, in so many ways. And we know, and to one of the earlier questions, the momentum that we're building is a credit to our coaches, and the fact that we have 8 of our coaches are ASU alums. And so you have people that have come through this university, that have grown up around this, that are now giving their talents and their attributes back. But you've also got coaches that are picking us. Randy Bennett, 25 years at St. Mary's, the only place he was ever going to leave for was ASU. And so when coaches at other schools can kind of see the momentum and see what's starting to happen here at ASU, and they say, I can be successful there, I want to be a part of this. When coaches that are having success are going to get, we know that there's going to be interest as jobs come open. And so staying in front of that, I was told this very early, the best decision you're going to make are the coaches that you bring into your department, because they're the ones leading your athletes every single day. And so when you've got somebody like Coach Dillingham and other coaches in our space, you got to have the conversations to understand what it takes for them to be successful. And then you go find those tools and you keep them motivated, keep them focused on the job that they're here to do.
Yeah, 8 coaches you mentioned, but an athletic director as well that's an alum. Graham Rossini, one of the best in the business and certainly one of the best in the Big 12. Graham, thank you so much for your time. Take care and be well. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks, guys. Good being with you.
Thank you. Graham Rossini, always fun to visit with Graham Rossini. And yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, 8 coaches are Arizona State alums, Kenny Dillingham included, and that doesn't even include Graham Rossini, who's a alum as well. I mean, that's a rarity in this space.
Well, and like, this is a program that's winning championships in the Big 12. They've already won a football championship, back-to-back volleyball.
9 championships in 2 years.
Like, they are humming, and Molly Miller has the women's basketball team rolling. Nobody thought they could get Randy Bennett, and they did. That was a huge add, and he has put together a top-half roster immediately for year one. Like, they're one of the most stable programs in this league. When you look at all sports across the board, who's winning, Arizona State is one that definitely comes to mind.
Well, and the story that to me stands out is how much of a, like, what you just said, how, like, impressive this is and what it looks like versus how much of a mess it looked like before Graham took over.
Right.
And I guess part of that is it probably wasn't as big of a mess as it looked like. And maybe sometimes you clean up football and suddenly everything else looks a lot better by comparison. And maybe that's just what it was. But whatever it is, I mean, the hires, extending the volleyball coach, getting an extension for Dillingham, right? Like, those things don't just happen. That's not just an easy, write the contract out and sign it, right? You've got to show those coaches, high-level coaches, a commitment to their sport in order to keep them there. Dillingham's an Arizona State alum, but he wasn't just staying there because he's an alum, because he's from the Valley. He's staying there because the resources and the relationship with Rossini are a big part of that. Rossini also just understands the modern world. He mentioned, what did he say? More sophisticated. The business operation, which is a great way, to talk about increasing revenue and finding the revenue streams that work. He's got the business background from his time with the Diamondbacks. Like, it's as much as we talk about Dillingham being like a godsend for Arizona State because he's an alum, because he's so good, Rossini's probably as much of a godsend as anything else because of how unorganized and much of a mess it looked like before he took over and how organized and successful it looks like now.
They're upgrading their football facilities. They're upgrading their men's and women's basketball arena. And I keep going back to the coaches. Nobody thought they could land Randy Bennett. He's been the most sought-after mid-major coach in America for like a decade.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe Mark Few, nobody thought they could land Molly Miller. Her connection to the state of Arizona and Arizona State was that she was at Grand Canyon. She is from Missouri. The Missouri job was open. Everybody thought that's where she was going to go. They got her at Arizona State. Kenny Dillingham, Michigan, Auburn come calling. He's gone. Nope, not so fast. And then with what they're doing in baseball and volleyball across the board, the analytics model that they're using for volleyball, just a really, really exciting time to be a fan.
Yeah, we didn't even have a chance to ask him about that indoor that we've talked a lot about. But, I mean, I just can't wait to see it. And, again, like, that's how you get Kenny Dillingham to stay. You get him to stay by showing a commitment to the growth of that program, and that's what we've seen. And I think, like, the common thread amongst a lot of these modern, quote-unquote, athletic directors is that. And that's not to say, like, the ones who have moved on weren't in the same vein, but it's that I think 10, 15 years ago, you might not have been ever able to keep Kenny Dillingham. And there's probably a lot of coaches like that where it was like, you're just not going to keep him. But now you live in a world that's far more competitive to where, like, you can as long as you show that commitment. That's the difference.
And they've already given Kenny Dillingham 2 raises. But probably tenfold, whatever that number was what they've invested into football and the program. That's what also stood out to me. Kenny Dillingham didn't want a raise. Sure, he's going to take it. It's a natural thing that happens when you're that sought after, but he wanted an investment into his program. And he has gotten that with the tailgate. What are they calling that thing? The new football practice facility that's going to double as like a resort?
Yeah.
It's going to be so cool.
Big 12 today on Big 12 Radio, presented by Modelo, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Joey McGuire, we must be diving into Texas Tech football today. Our Countdown to Kickoff series continues. We go through each and every Big 12 school, the latest updates from training camp, what we know, what we don't know, position battles to watch, any injury news out there, depth chart locks, and is Texas Tech the favorite? Chris Level, the host of Locked On Red Raiders, is with us in about 15 minutes. Texas Tech, what do we know about the Red Raiders?
Well, Texas Tech's very good. They lost 9 players to April's NFL draft, and then their quarterback in June, and despite that, they've moved up in the polls. So that's pretty good. SP Plus is high on Tech, has them 8th. The AP has them 12th. Kickoff is 13 days out, and in that window, 3 things are unresolved, which we'll get to. But what we know is this is probably the best roster in the Big 12, and it's probably not very close. Also, 22 transfers added, the number 6 class via 24/7 Sports, and the staff is totally intact. They have Mac Leftwich, DC Shield Wood, Associate Head Coach Kenny Perry, James Blanchard, all signed through 2028. And both coordinators have overseen top 10 units in 2025. 2 more things we know. Backfield's loaded, and schedule's easy. Coordinator consistency, backfield loaded, schedule's easy, and this is about as talented as the team as there is in the Big 12.
Yeah, with the easy schedule, I would add that we know there's not a lot of margin for error. You can't lose 2 games with this schedule,
right,
and expect to be in the college football playoff.
Probably can't lose 1. If you're going to lose 1, it's got to be in the Big 12 championship, and then who knows if you still get there with a loss.
And who's that loss to? It is really hard to go undefeated in college football. Last year's schedule was slightly more challenging than this year's, but they still lost a game at Arizona State, which I think if that game was on this year's schedule, we'd say, oh, that's a win. Texas Tech doesn't lose that game. Is the quarterback drama resolved? Do we know that?
Yes. Yeah. What do you mean?
Even if they add Tommy Castellanos, does that add any drama in that room in any way, shape, or form?
No, because I think that this is not new news for Tech. Like, they were anticipating this happening. I think they've been adjusting for it and accounting for it. And it's Will Hammond is the starting quarterback. He is going to be QB1, but that may not be how the season starts because this may allow them to buy some extra weeks for him to get fully healthy if not. But, yeah, make no mistake about it. This will not impact the locker room or drama in any way.
You think there's a chance Castellanos would start week 1?
Yeah, I could see it.
Man, I've got like a week and a half to learn the system and the playbook. But he's talented.
All right, maybe not.
I'm with you on the skill positions. I mean, my goodness, the running back room, Pro Football Focus rated that running back room the best, deepest room in the country with Jacoby Williams back, Cameron Dickey, all-league, back at running back, who I think will have a chip on his shoulder for being slighted and not preseason all Big 12. And then Quentin Joyner, the electrifying back, who's coming off a torn ACL. That's a scary thing for a running back, but he was dynamic at USC. And we know the defense is going to be rock solid. And I think that starts at the top with Shield Wood, the defensive coordinator. He's there his 2nd season in a row after he's retooled now 2 complete defensive overhauls. Houston was a mess. They're a top 5 defense in the Big 12. Texas Tech hires him. They're arguably the best defense in the country.
Well, and if they have success again, which you expect that they will, I wouldn't be surprised to see Shield Wood getting opportunities to be a head coach in college football. Look, you need talent to win and be successful. There's no question about that. But, turning over rosters every year and turning those into top defenses, should need no further explanation.
Joey McGuire, the head coach at Texas Tech. Taman, let's play clip 5 because it speaks to what we're talking about with Texas Tech. And they have talent. And Joey McGuire is the one that identified that talent isn't everything.
It's going to sound crazy, but the way they ate, the food, like literally, we didn't have a full-time dietitian. We have 2 now that are just strictly football. That was really important because the questions that I asked some of the players one-on-one, one of the things they talked about was the food. What is great about that was kind of interesting is think about all of the relationships you build over breaking bread with your guys, like the lunches or how many times you've sit down with a group of guys and you just talk about life. And it's over a great meal. That was one thing that was really important. And it was important to the players. You could tell. That's one thing I told them. I said, guys, it's going to change, and it's going to change in a hurry.
Team dinners. Sounds simple, huge team-building exercise, and that's one example of many that Joey McGuire has installed.
Yeah. No, I mean, and I don't know that Joey gets the credit that he should be for how good Texas Tech is. I just think a lot of people, and this has become more apparent to me this offseason than any previous one, but I think most people sort of divorce Joey McGuire's, responsibility for the success of Texas Tech because they have this money and they have this talent and blah, blah. For some reason, it's only singled out with Texas Tech and not singled out with any other team in the top 10. But, Joey, this is one of those aspects that shows that the leadership qualities that Joey has and has had for quite some time.
All right, what are the question marks as we inch closer to the season? What we don't know.
Well, we don't know what Will Hammond is over 13 games. 8 appearances in 25. He completed over 60% of his balls for 680 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, plus 43 carries for 299 and 5 scores. He injured his knees against Oklahoma State. He relieved Baron Morton at Utah in a 34-10 win over the then number 16 Utes, and then came in against Kansas and started at Arizona State. So started a loss, but he's just a relative unknown in terms of what it'll look like at starting, 12, 13 games for Texas Tech this year. And then, the second unknown is, can this defensive front generate 41 sacks again with almost an entirely new cast? They've got the pieces with Trick and Romaine and White. They've got guys that have produced big-time sack numbers. It remains to be seen if they can do that. And then safety, right? We've talked a lot about what they'll look like, opposite Brendan Jordan at safety for Texas Tech, and it's certainly something we're going to talk with Chris Level about.
Another thing I've got to ask Chris about, the latest Our Lads depth chart, which they update these daily based off of camp reports, injury news, has A.J. Holmes currently listed as a backup, and the defensive tackle at Bryce Butler starting at nose. I don't know if that's injury related or if the guys that have been brought in are just that talented, but right now, like their projected depth chart, their front 5 guys, if you include Austin Romaine, are all newcomers. And then the next 6 are all returners, like Ben Roberts at linebacker, John Curry at linebacker. So I would flag that as one thing we don't know. And I'm with you on the defensive line. Like, you lose a $7 million defensive line with newcomers that aren't as well known as Romello Height was, as David Bailey was. Now, these are guys that NFL scouts love, but they transfer from Miami, Ohio. They transfer from San Diego State. So they're going to see a huge uptick in terms of the guys on the other line of scrimmage for these Big 12 schools and their offensive lines. So that's what we don't know. We assume that they're going to be fine, but we don't know if they can match last year's success being the nation's top rushing defense and getting after the quarterback.
Well, and if you want to pivot now to the camp battles, the safety's the biggest one. Kind of remains to be seen. There's Brendan Jordan, and then the other spot is a question. Shield Wood said after their first scrimmage that Peyton Morgan, Oliver Miles III, and Malik Escara are all being consistent, but that none have separated, and that it may take quote-unquote live game situations before the staff can determine how it shakes out. So Jordan is the only out-and-out starter. The other spot, the boundary or field, remains a mystery. So we'll see how that shakes out. And then I think LaDamian Guyton is a guy, as a freshman edge rusher. How much does he see? It's not a camp battle as much as it is. Like, he has really showed off in practice. He's participated in 8 of the first 10 practices. Shield Wood has talked about his athleticism, just the things that, physically that he's already shown up against the run and the pass. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of what his 2026 role is, because I'm not sure that there's not much expected of him as a true freshman.
So Malik Escara is a returner, but he barely played last year. Only had 8 tackles. Let's play clip 7, T-Chain's Joey McGuire talking about the recruiting priorities at Texas Tech and the players that are returning that have been in the program.
Because of the world we live in, you better have great relationships with your current team because they can't enter the portal. So I wanted our coaches to take their relationships to another level. I wanted them to really focus on developing our current team. I think one thing in my mind, at one point, there were a couple players that I evaluated that I really wanted to recruit, and it got to the coordinator. The coordinator didn't like them. I was really like, okay, this is a broken system. And then, why am I even watching film if it gets to the coordinator and it never gets to this group? Why am I focusing on that? that. Let me focus on the team that we have. All the coordinators, the position coaches, they watch it. Blanche will create a list, and this is when they're watching it. If that group thinks that this kid should be offered, then they're going to call the head coach of the high school, and then they're going to call the player and offer them, or the player's going to call them.
The system works in Lubbock. Other position battles I look at, how much is Felix Ojo going to play this season at tackle? I mean, he is the highest rated Texas Tech recruit ever. I mean, this dude is NFL ready now. Is he going to be in the rotation right away? I would anticipate he gets the majority of his season snaps in the non-conference to see just kind of where he's at. And then wide receiver. Is Micah Hudson truly going to be wide receiver 1? Is he ready for that? Coy Aiken is the most experienced wide receiver in the entire country. Has a ridiculous snap count, and he's been productive, but he's a slot guy. So if it's not Micah Hudson, is it Kenny Johnson? Is it Dante Lee Jr., the transfer from Liberty? Is it Malcolm Simmons, the transfer from Auburn? I love that room, but I don't know who's emerging.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. Again, to your point, like, I'm not sure who the one is, but there's a lot of guys in there that could factor into that conversation and who becomes that emergent player. Here's my question, because we've asked this with all of the teams. You know, is this team a legitimate Big 12 title contender? Let me ask you this. Is Texas Tech a legitimate national title sleeper right now?
Sleeper, I say yes.
Yeah, I mean, they could be top 5 in the nation. With, like, their personnel, they've got their entire backfield back. They've returned 3 offensive line starters. The defense has replaced volume with quality. You know, they expect to have guys on the defensive side of the football, which will be, you know, NFL draft picks in 2027. The schedule and the continuity with coaching. For me, like, this is a top 5 team in college football right now. They're SP Plus number 8. They're 12th in the AP poll. It's the highest AP preseason ranking since 1977. So, yeah, it feels like they are being slept on a little bit. But this is also sort of a situation where it's like, oh, yeah, this is what we expect for Texas Tech now. And we should recognize that, like, yeah, this is, from a preseason standpoint, the highest they've been since 1977. This is a new world for Texas Tech.
And to me, when I look at the most expensive rosters in college football, Joey McGuire, I think, has a better system, better culture. The way they operate internally is better than a lot of these other programs. LSU is projected, LSU and Texas, 2 teams that were not in the college football playoff last year, are projected to have the 2 most expensive rosters in college football. This is from CBS Sports. They polled a bunch of people and tried to get some numbers, right? Oregon is in this top tier. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami. I'm not convinced Darion Mensah is a Heisman candidate like he's being hyped as. Texas A&M, and then the other schools I just mentioned, LSU and Texas. By the way, Texas Tech is not in this top tier when it comes to roster spending. They're in the next tier, but dark horse contender, absolutely. Texas A&M also mentioned. All right, any injury news we should be concerned about? Sounds like Quentin Joyner's full go. Will Hammond, full go.
Exactly. I mean, those were the 2 to pay attention to, both coming off ACL injuries. And, yeah, I mean, everything we've heard is both are full go and ready to go.
Chris Level, he's always full go. The host of Locked On Red Raiders. He will join us coming up next, also part of the Texas Tech Red Raider Radio Network here on Big 12 Today, on Big 12 Radio, heard on TuneIn and watched on Big 12 Studios.
Here's Martin on 2nd and 3, but he is met and tackled for a loss. Jacob Rodriguez making his first big moment.
Wigman to the air, and the pass is picked off by Rodriguez. And then he hurdles, but Cougar and is still going. And finally brought down inside the 25-yard line.
A lot of yelling at the line. Finally the snap. Avery Johnson on a straight ball came out again. It's out again, and Pollock has it. Chase Brown.
This is how you respond to Heisman hype. Rodriguez, touchdown.
You
definitely need Sam Jackson. Handoff here as that one is taken away. Going the other way. Make it the fourth play of the game. That's a game changer. Take it to the house. It's Jacob Rodriguez.
They set it in motion. Look out for that screen action. Underneath, intercepted by Rodriguez. Jacob Rodriguez, the big play.
Come back to haunt them because they've been blowing teams out. Nice play in the backfield again by Rodriguez, taking down Connors for a loss.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. Our countdown to kickoff series rolls out to Lubbock, Texas today. Texas Tech, the team we are talking about, with Chris Level from the Texas Tech Radio Network and host of Locked On Red Raiders. Chris, good morning. What's up?
Gentlemen, how we doing on this lovely Monday morning?
Fantastic. How are things in Lubbock?
Good. Yeah, rocking and rolling, man. I guess it's what pre-game week or the week before game week or something like that. Yeah, however you want to phrase that. But yeah, all good, man. And no news around here has been good news, I think.
Okay, I like that angle. What about this whole Tommy Castellanos thing, the transfer quarterback? Is he on campus yet?
No, not yet. Probably emphasizing yet. I think that will likely happen. I don't think it's happened yet at the time that we're sitting here talking, but I think this is probably somebody that they have been interested in for over a month, maybe, since he first got an injunction and said that he was interested in playing a fifth year and he was willing to play other positions and the whole thing. And then they've been trying to maneuver their way through Castellanos' crew has been trying to maneuver their way through the legal aspects of this, and got some news on Friday which would kind of open the old runway there for him to join somebody other than Florida State. And I think you're looking to beef up your quarterback room just in case, break glass in case of emergency type scenario. So I think that there's definitely mutual interest on both sides of that to try to make that happen, as long as Texas Tech feels comfortable about what the legalities of all that would be.
When it comes to Will Hammond, what are you, I guess, most excited about seeing, and what is your assessment of what we're expecting for a guy that's going to play 12, 13 games this year?
Yeah, hopefully more than that. Hopefully, I think he's been quoted as saying, "I'm prepared to play 16 games this year. That's what I'm preparing to do." So that's a long season. By the way, happy belated birthday, Mr.
Thank you.
Timken.
Thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Appreciate
sir.
You.
Yeah, I think what you want to see from Will is somebody that doesn't feel like they have to be the hero. And he's fearless. Like, that's just his mindset. And I think that's what is going to be kind of fascinating and maybe even tricky at times, is like making him understand, dumping it off to Jacoby Williams is not a bad thing. Throwing it into the stands is not a bad thing. Having a field goal kicker that is good from 60 plus is not a bad thing. Because I think Stone Harrington, he in the first scrimmage he kicked a 64-yarder, and he made plenty of 50-plus yard field goals a year ago, and I think the defense is going to be really good. So see if he can play within those parameters and not putting himself in harm's way. Again, it's easier said than done. We've seen many NFL franchise quarterbacks try to get that extra yard or two, and you're like, what are you doing? And they can't help themselves. They're competitors. And so that's the aspect I'm curious about seeing, is that let me phrase it this way. To me, he is the only quarterback in the Big 12 conference that doesn't have to be great for them to still win the league.
I think that's well said.
Yeah.
Does Texas Tech have the best running back room in the country?
I bet it's one of them, at least. I think a lot of that will depend on Quentin Joyner. I think that what has been interesting in fall camp is that Quentin is, he said it on in a media availability last week. He needs to lose about 5 pounds. He's starting to get to feel a bit better and feel like himself. But he even said the two guys in front of him are really good. And so it's not like, I think a year ago he's number one and these two guys are hunting him, and now the roles are kind of reversed, and it's just made for a better room in general, because I think Cam and Jacoby, they're made men to a certain extent, and there's some people, I think, even whether it was Mac Leftwich or Garrett McGuire, who's Joey's son and the running backs coach, said, I'm not sure Jacoby Williams hadn't been the most impressive player we have on our entire football team in the first 2.5 weeks of camp. So yeah, they're in a really good spot there, for sure.
It feels like the only real question mark here in terms of position battles is that safety spot next to Brendan Jordan. Is that fair?
Yes. So in the portal era, what is unlike, because I feel like I've been doing this since the early 2000s, and you cover camp and you try to lay out your team and try to figure out where the position battles are going to be. But like last year and this year, it's fascinating because they answer so many of those questions like 9 months ago via the portal, and they bring in a ready-made answer. And so you go into a camp like this, and it's like, yeah, you're worried about Will Hammond, and you're worried about, okay, what's Kirk Francis and Lloyd Jones going to be? Who's going to be the backup? And then now you may add another piece in there. But the only really position battle is who's going to be the other starter at safety. Yeah, you're worried about, okay, some depth on the offensive line, just kind of curious what those pieces would look like. But, is it going to be Peyton Morgan or Malik Esquera? They brought in a D2 All-American named Jordan Rogers about a month ago just as an extra. They had a spot on their roster. He's sitting out there in the portal, and he's a senior with a ton of experience. And he kind of plays the same position as Brendan Jordan does. So Jordan Rogers is just there, as an insurance policy. And I just think that's what the difference with this Tech team and the other one last year is that there's so much more depth. You may not have the number 2 pick on the draft on your team, but there's just so much more depth. There's Power 4 starters that are going to be backups here. And yes, that's really the only question that we're curious about. Maybe who starts at or who's in the rotation at receiver. But yeah, Peyton Morgan is the only kind of starter you're curious about if he's going to be the guy or if it'll be Malik or somebody else. So that's kind of fascinating when you look at a team and go, there's not a whole lot of questions here. There's just not.
So Chris, what would you pin as the reason for Texas Tech having so much more depth this year compared to last year? Was it the way they spent in the portal? Is it just having more players in the program that return? How would you identify the reason?
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of all of that. I think that they changed their philosophy with their high school recruiting. So that is like your third tight end is a freak, and Moose Ludwig. You just got fortunate because he was committed to Michigan, and when everything went down to Michigan, he's like, I don't want to go here anymore. And so you just kind of fall into that one. LaDamian Guyton. So you're going to mix in some very, very talented freshmen. That makes you deeper. And then I think you had some guys return. And then, like, let's just look at receiver, for example. You were in on the Cam Coleman sweepstakes, but look at it this way. Maybe he was here on a visit. You tried to get him. I think Texas paid him more. Again, I know contrary to popular belief, Texas Tech doesn't get every player that they want and buy. I mean, there's other teams out there spending money, but they probably ended up with Kenny Johnson, Dante Lee, Malcolm Simmons, and a young man by the name of Jalen Jones for the price that would have taken them to get Cam Coleman, which, again, probably way more top heavy if you have Cam Coleman, and he would be first team this and that, but you're much deeper because of it. So there were some of those kinds of scenarios that played out that add to your depth to where there's just not a lot of. But where the most impressive depth is on this team is their defensive line. With A.J. Holmes and Mateen, and then guys like Bryce Butler and Julian Leventor, who in any other year in the last 20 years other than maybe last year, that's a duo that's absolutely starting, and you feel wonderful about it. And then now on this team, they're second-team guys. So that's just where there's some differences in maybe you and some other teams in the league or in the country, but that's just where some of the depth is spilled over at.
Over under 41 sacks this year for that defense.
I would bet that you're gonna get that number. Yeah, I think I would say over. I think I think Austin Romaine is a weapon that they have identified that they can. He was playing the Mike linebacker spot at Kansas State. That's where they needed, up in Manhattan, they needed him to play that. He is now fortunate enough to play the weak side linebacker spot now, so they can employ him in a pass rushing role on occasion. But Guyton is the X factor here. I mean, James Blanchard went on a podcast last week and basically said, and it's not just blowing smoke, because I think he's got an eye for it. He's talking to NFL people that have already come through here. He's like, well, Damian Guyton could potentially be, if he continues to trend like we've seen, he could be the number 1 pick in the draft in 3 or 4 years. That's how good he is. I think they feel like he's good for 6 or 8 sacks right out of the gate here. He's been here for like 2 or 3 weeks. But he walked in at 6'3", 240, and he just is different. I don't know any other way to say it. And it's been fascinating listening to the offensive coordinator talk about LaDainian Guyton, the defensive tackles coach talk about LaDainian, like unprompted, like guys that aren't even responsible for him. And I don't think they're trying to put too much pressure on him. They're just basically saying, yeah, this kid number 32, he's a problem. Like, I haven't seen anything like this before, but it's kind of coming from everywhere. So I think with Romaine and Guyton, you're not going to have anybody that ends up with 14 and a half like David Bailey did. And I don't think you have a David Bailey on this roster, but maybe you do. Maybe he's just really young and his name is LaDainian Guyton. I don't know. We'll see. But I bet they, in the beauty of what they do on defense here and what they did last year, Sheil will tell you, it's amazing how good you can be on defense when you only have to rush 4 and still cause problems. And I think he feels like we can still cause plenty of problems by only rushing 4, and that's what allows for all those turnovers and everything like that. Your linebackers are really, really good, so they should be in a position where they only rush 4, and So yeah, I think I'm taking the over there. Yeah, how about that?
Well, and I saw Adam Trick. Apparently, I thought it was, number one, it stood out to me that of all the guys that Texas Tech brought in on that defensive line, he was the one that was preseason all-league. And then you noted that he's been training with Max Crosby this summer. Like, just how good could he be?
Yeah, he's got there's a connection there with Max Crosby. So he and Trey White went to the SAC Summit in Las Vegas. I don't know, it was back in July, and Max and Adam, they're both got the beard and the red hair, and they look the same, but everything you'll hear about Adam Trick is just his motor. So because that's the one thing about Crosby that makes him different than any player in the NFL. He's just like never stops. This isn't Max Crosby, but he is in that same mold, in that he's just a high effort guy. And I think that NFL folks would tell you these, Trey White and Adam, they're your 3rd round variety, which is kind of what Romello was, coming out of the when he was drafted this past April. But I think that some would suggest to you, had Guyton gotten here back in January, that Guyton would be starting there and not Trick.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, that's not what's happened, but that's what you've got at your disposal here. So again, it's just different right now. I'm not used to this. I've seen a lot of bad football here, but the guys that are walking in here, they look different. They play different. They've got pedigree. They're highly, because I've sat on the sideline many times, and I've seen what a Texas roster looks like, an Oklahoma roster looks like, an LSU roster looks like, and that's what you look like right now. That doesn't win you any games, and it's up to Joey to kind of bring it all together, but there's some pieces here that are just different.
What's the strength of this team? Defensive line?
Yeah, I would say up front on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I think being able to, you've got a lot more and better big people than I would guess most teams are going to be able to deal with. But probably your front 7 on defense may be where, because I just can't, you can talk defensive line, but you just can't not talk about that group of linebackers. I mean, that's just like, I don't know what it's going to look like a year from now. Okay. But right now, yeah, your front 7 on defense is just extremely impressive. If they stay healthy, and all those kinds of things. But and then I just think your ability to lean on people and run it when you want to, and your group of tight ends is much better and deeper than a year ago here, which that plays into the run game as well. And then just obviously the stable of backs that we talked about. So that to me is you're kind of built old school, if that makes sense. And again, times are different. Used to, it was like spread it out, get as wide as you can, create as much space on the field. I think they're built now to, you want to play an old kind of Midwest style of football, fine. But if you want us to run past you, we can do that too.
Chris, is the strength of schedule or lack thereof being overblown in your opinion? And what does that do in terms of margin for error? And how many losses Tech could stomach this year and still make the playoff?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all the same stuff that you guys have. It's just funny how we've already figured out that their schedule is terrible, and it's almost disrespectful to the Big 12 Conference because, I mean, what if Houston's better than some think?
Yeah.
What if Arizona State is, it's happened before. What if Arizona State is much better than anybody would have thought? But it's like we've already eliminated that, and it's a perception battle that you're fighting right now if you're in the Big 12 Conference on. I think what we can agree on is that what we think we know about most of these teams going into the season on Tech's schedule, most of those are in Lubbock. Now you've got a tricky trip to Stillwater, Oklahoma later on in the year that could be scary, or maybe Oklahoma State isn't quite as good in year one as some would have thought. But I just think that if we try to there's a reason why the CFP waits 8 weeks to rank these teams.
Right.
And I think that's important to note. Maybe it ends up being as easy. I just think that is not doing Texas Tech any good at all by it being labeled and talked about the way it is, or the metrics that are out there, all those kinds of things. But that's the reality of it. So to answer your question, James, yeah, I think that you 11-1 probably gets you to Arlington, but does 10-2? Maybe not. So yeah, not much margin for error there, I wouldn't think. No.
Yeah, well said. All right, Chris, season's here, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Gentlemen, keep hope alive. Enjoy the week. We'll talk next time.
You're the best.
Right,
Thanks.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
See you, boys.
Chris Level, Texas Tech Radio Network, host of Locked On Red Raiders. A lot to unpack in terms of Texas Tech and countdown to kickoff. We'll wrap up the show coming up next on a Monday edition. It is a Modelo Monday here on Big 12 Radio.
He's home again. Changing up the look. The result is the same for David Bailey.
56% on the year on conversions. Jackson's in trouble and down. David Bailey, he is a sack machine.
More on 3rd and 8. Pressure and they get to him. He is sacked by the best in the biz, David Bailey. 14 and a half sacks now on the season. On this possession. But a huge smack in the backfield again. It's David Bailey walloping Jamarian Burnett.
Work on an empty here. 3rd down and 9. Kansas State. Oh, goodness. Look out. David Bailey, the sack leader in the nation, gets home again.
Cam Pickett is much healthier now and running better. You see it there.
Oh, good night. David Bailey in a heartbeat. He graduated from Stanford in under 4 years, and he runs like this.
Big 12 today here on Big 12 Radio. We hit on Texas Tech today, our Countdown to Kickoff series. Later on, right here on the channel at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, our Big 12 Power Hour. Kansas State, the Gene Taylor interview, their athletic director, and then our Countdown to Kickoff K-State series at 3 Eastern, 2 o'clock Central. It's Utah, head coach Morgan Scalley in our Utah series. And then at 4 Eastern, 3 o'clock Central, Houston. Countdown to Kickoff with the Cougars, our Eddie Nunez interview, their athletic director. NFL preseason underway. Jarcadia Wright, the superstar for the Seahawks, the fourth string running back at Kansas State in his past life. Shedeur Sanders is not the week 1 starter. Deshaun Watson getting the job in Cleveland. He was a rookie last year. How are the rookies this year?
Yeah, so far it's been a mixed bag. In terms of just the first couple of weeks of preseason. 30 teams have played 2 preseason games. 2 additional teams have played 3 preseason games already. So there's been some good news and bad news. Let's start with some of the bad news, though, to get that out of the way.
Okay.
In the Seahawks game, Bud Clark was carted off the field with an injury there. I believe he suffered a broken foot. He'll miss the first couple of months of his career. Also, really hate to see Jordan Tyson, a guy whose career at Arizona State was, mired in injury history, is going to start the season on IR. He's suffered an injury August 17th. He's expected to miss approximately 2 months with a hamstring injury suffered during training camp. So Tyson and Bud Clark are 2 guys dealing with injuries. So is Max Ahanacho as well. We haven't seen him play much of the preseason because he's been missing time with an injury. There's been some surprises from the quarterback position. It looks like from what we've seen in the preseason, Baron Morton is set to be the backup quarterback in New England, and Jalen Daniels, for some reason his name was not jumping off my tongue. Jalen Daniels has played really well at Tampa. He's trying to get himself a roster spot as well over there. Some other kind of positive surprises. Jacob Rodriguez is listed as the co-starting linebacker. And then how about the wide receiver, another wide receiver for Miami, Caleb Douglas was the 75th overall pick. He's named as a starter on Miami's first 2 deep. So he could be a starting wide receiver, Caleb Douglas, as a rookie for Miami, along with Jacob Rodriguez. 2 guys that started at Texas Tech last year could be starting for the Miami Dolphins. So those are just some quick notes for what we've seen from training camp.
Caleb Douglas has had a phenomenal preseason. Just one more recruiting tool for Texas Tech. Caleb Douglas, a 3rd-round pick, day 1 starter. Jacob Rodriguez, day 1 starter. Baron Morton, late-round pick, backup quarterback, year 1. Usually those guys don't even make a roster.
Yeah. Well, and Cyrus Allen, who is the number 176 pick for Kansas City, has showed up and had a really big camp for the Chiefs. He's been kind of a camp darling. Emmanuel Henderson is, truly on the bubble for Kansas. Malachi Lawrence is off to a interesting start for Dallas. The Cowboys just signed Von Miller, and I think in many ways they're kind of using this season as more of a red shirt for Malachi Lawrence because they like some of the traits that he has, which is why they drafted him in the first round. But so far, nothing's really jumped off in training camp in terms of that. So he's kind of like 3rd or 4th on the depth chart right now in terms of their defensive end rotation. Dominique Orange has looked really good in camp for Minnesota, and he's in a rotation in their defensive tackle. Same with Skylar Gill-Howard, another guy that's had a really good camp. So a lot of these guys are off to really good starts for their careers out of training camp. And then, some positives from UDFA. I mentioned Jalen Daniels, 10 of 15 for 111 yards with a rushing touchdown as had the entire second half. He entered 4th in the depth chart behind Connor Bazelak, but he outplayed him, so he may have moved up to 3rd or maybe even higher than that on the depth chart. Logan Fano, of course, Spencer's brother, who signed as a UDFA with Cleveland, has had a really good training camp, another guy that has really stepped up. So some interesting names that could be making rosters for out of UDFAs out of the Big 12.
Man, Jalen Daniels, that line is about as good as it can get in a preseason game. He played 2 full quarters. Would you say 10 of 15, a touchdown, no interceptions?
111 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. So he definitely outplayed Basilak, who started the game and is the guy that he was behind in the depth chart. So
I always look at, like, when it comes to yards versus completions, especially in the preseason, if you're averaging 10 yards a completion, that is a major win, because a lot of preseason throws are just these little checkdowns. The offensive line is usually a mess. It's just ugly football.
Yeah, great point. And just on the UDFA front, there's about 450 undrafted free agents that start training camp on a roster, and about 45 of those make the initial 53, so about 9% of undrafted free agents will actually make a roster. So really difficult. Another guy out of the Big 12 that's making a push is Michael Trigg from Baylor, who's with the Cowboys in camp. And he's had a good camp, but I think some of the reasons he wasn't drafted are still showing up, like, the blocking piece, right? Like, he's a legitimate target over the middle, big-time catch radius, but it's the blocking that's a question mark. He could make the initial 53 off the Cowboys, but I'd project him as a practice squad player off the bat.
I thought you were going to tell me that 450 players are now going back to college.
Oh, no, yeah, not yet.
Because they got cut.
Not yet.
How about guys like, remember is Taj Brooks still in the league, the Texas Tech running back?
Yes.
Last year, R.J. Harvey's like a dude now. I know Deuce Vaughn, I think, is no longer. Is he still with the Cowboys?
He just signed with the Texans.
The Texans? Okay,
Yeah,
I like that move.
He's kind of had, I wouldn't say a disappointing NFL career because he was an undrafted free agent, but I think, some of us expected him to make a little bit more noise than he's made so far.
I thought he'd be the next Darren Sproles.
Yeah, but Brooks is still playing. He's with Cincinnati. He's going to factor into Cincinnati's backfield, this year. Corey Kiner is a guy that has popped a little bit. So it's just fun to watch. Just trying to go through some of the other notes that I took here. Romello Height has had a really good camp. I mean, this is a guy that has really jumped. I think he was taken number 70 overall. People thought he would just be a pass rushing specialist. He has really broken out at 49ers camp. Jake Golday is becoming a contributor as the linebacker for Minnesota. They've got high expectations for him. Yeah, the big stuff is, I think, Bud Clark with the injury the other night.
Yeah, that sucks.
Jordan Tyson with an injury again, where it's like, man, you hate that this continues to follow him. Hopefully he can get healthy.
And it's just been one thing or another.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Yeah. He didn't have hamstring issues at Arizona State. It was shoulder stuff. Two very different. How's that?
Nice. There you go.
Am I still on?
Yeah.
Am I on right now?
Sounds like it.
Am I on right now?
Yeah.
You're on.
It's my headphones. Yeah, Jordan Tyson, two completely different parts of the body.
Yeah.
Cyrus Allen's another one, the receiver from Cincinnati.
Yep.
He's expected to be wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I mentioned him earlier. He's jumped at Chiefs camp. He's been a huge surprise for them. And the last one I'll mention here is Spencer Fano. No surprises here, but he was named a starter. So I would say from like an outcome perspective, he's been the best other than David Bailey. Like Fano being named starting left tackle as a rookie is a pretty good start. And then in golf, I don't know if you watched any BMW Championship yesterday in Kansas or in St. Louis, but Wyndham Clark, the former Oklahoma State Cowboy golfer, won it at 17 under.
Okay.
Rory McIlroy was up most of that tournament. He ends up finishing third. And Gary Woodland from Kansas, we've talked a lot about with the mental struggles that he's gone through after having brain surgery, he finished tied for fourth at 12 under in that tournament. So Wyndham Clark from Oklahoma State wins it, and Gary Woodland finishes tied for fourth at 12 under. So good stuff there for Big 12 golfers.
Saturday night, I watched a Savannah Bananas game on television.
Nice.
With my boys. Have you ever watched one of their games?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah, my kids were like, we were watching one a few weeks ago, and my kids were like, can we go to a game? And it's like, you know how hard it is to get tickets?
No, we can't.
It's very difficult to get tickets.
Yeah.
Then they're asking about the Harlem Globetrotters, and I'm like, it's a little bit different. They go everywhere. They used to be a lot bigger of a deal. It's like the old school Savannah Bananas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not just about getting outs and scoring runs. You got to get points too added to it.
Yes.
Bananas.
Which is all very confusing.
It's not just catching a ball. You got to do a backflip and then catch it.
Right. It's quite impressive.
It is.
Catching balls in the outfield behind their back. I was impressed. All right, we will Shedeur Sanders, real quick, backup quarterback. He goes 9 of 11, 74 yards, a touchdown. He's been way better than Deshaun Watson, and Watson is named the starter. This broke like an hour ago on our show.
Yeah, it sounds very Cleveland Browns of them.
Make it make sense.
Sounds very Cleveland Browns of them. It's a good thing they don't start the season at home because Deshaun Watson's just getting booed mercilessly by Browns fans, and now he's fighting back with Browns fans. It's a great look for Deshaun Watson and an even better look for Browns fans.
All right, he's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. For Anthony Smith behind the camera, for Taman Turner, our audio producer. We're back tomorrow, 8A to 11A Eastern Time, right here on the channel. This has been Big 12 Today on Big 12 Radio, brought to you by Modelo.